What's up?
How's it going?
Pretty good. How are you?
It's been a nice day.
This mic is kind of sensitive, so you have to really kind of talk right over the mic
All right.
for the audience to hear you.
Oh. All right.
You can grab onto it too if you need
All
to.
right. We all good?
Yep, we're good.
All right. So I was going to ask you originally when Turning Point had their event. I was planning to go. I couldn't go, but I was planning to ask the question to Charlie Kirk, basically like getting a rundown on like his idea of what people think about the separation of church and state and whether or not you agree with it, you disagree with it. What's your like whole...
I'm like a Christian in training, so Ben could probably answer this a little bit better.
Okay.
I'm no expert on this specific topic, but I would say there's a lot of people getting their wires crossed when they talk about it. Like, everybody means something different.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. That's why I wanted to ask you, because I wanted clarification.
Yeah, I mean, I would say as far as separation of church and state, what I would support is the government not saying you have to adhere to a certain religion, like saying you have to convert to Christianity, because that's just wrong.
Yeah.
You're supposed to convert to Christianity willingly.
Yes.
And most religions hold that. I mean, even Islam holds that to an extent. I mean, they kind of push you into it, but they still say you have to become a Muslim willingly.
Yes.
So I would say that's very important, and we should allow people to hold different religious views.
Yeah.
However, it is the case that the laws that were implemented in the Constitution were inspired by Christianity. This isn't really contested by most serious people.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I mean, it's the same with all of Western civilization. You know, the idea that children can't consent, you can't have sex with children, that's something that came from Christianity. The idea that we needed to abolish slavery, obviously it took a while, but that did come from Christianity, and it came from a lot of Christian advocates. So the laws that we have are inspired by Christianity and religion, whether people like it or not. So when they're saying, oh, you can't be pro-life, you can't ban abortion just because you're Christian, I mean, that's not true. We can do that. We can use our Christianity to justify why we should ban abortion.
Yeah. And another thing, too, is there are two types of laws. The most prominent one
I
is...
do want to know, but does that pertain to all laws?
Yeah, I'm gonna get there. Yeah. So let me just get there with this. So all laws are one of two categories.
Yes.
And they're usually, most of the time, they're moral laws. So they are derived from, the other half or the other portion are pragmatic laws.
Right.
So like border laws, for example, you need them because you need them, as opposed to like you need them because they're moral. It's not like morally wrong to cross a border. You just need borders to keep people safe. So the majority of laws are based on morality, somebody's morality, right? And oftentimes people's morality is derived from their faith, right? The separation of church and state means that the church cannot control the state. Somebody who is a Christian using their faith or their moral belief set to inspire laws is not the church controlling the state. It's simply somebody who is a Christian writing a law that is, there's no way around their morality not inspiring that law, right? So like either way, that law will be a result of their morality, right? And so if you say, well, you can't write laws based on Christian faith, what you're basically saying is Christians can't write laws, which obviously can't be the case, right? Christians have to be allowed to write laws.
I would say you'd have to consider, as a Christian or as a Muslim or as pretty much anybody, that you need to consider the idea that there are different faiths, and you need to consider like the original founding intention.
Sure, you could consider that, but if you write a law based on a Christian belief and that law does not violate the Constitution, it doesn't contradict any existing laws, and it passes, it doesn't matter, right? Democracy is done. We're over. Right, but the law is now the law.
Would you say, I'll bring it up because you brought it up. Would you say abortion falls under that?
No. I just became a Christian like 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I have been pro-life virtually my entire adult life.
Right.
And I was an atheist. So, and I argued from a secular position. It has nothing to do with Christianity.
Right.
I mean, it is a Christian belief that you shouldn't kill babies, but I think that it should be more than a Christian belief. It should probably be like a normal belief that you don't kill babies.
Yeah, there's the two different types of religious expression. You know, one that can affect other people and hurt other people, and one that doesn't. So, like, if a Muslim were to put down a prayer mat and start praying, you know, that's not hurting us. That's fine. We don't need to ban that for any reason. But if some, like, Satanist or Reformed Jew or whatever said, oh, a part of my religion is abortion, we would say, sorry, that's unacceptable. If someone said child marriage is part of my religion, we say, sorry, that's unacceptable. I mean, I wouldn't even say sorry. I would just say that's unacceptable and you're weird. So obviously there are a lot of practices of Judaism, Islam, other offshoots of Christianity, Mormons, whatever else, that are completely acceptable for society if they want to worship in their own buildings and do their own thing, even if they want to pray in public, completely acceptable. But if they want to harm other people or stop us from practicing our religion, the dominant religion, what should be the dominant religion in America anyways, Christianity, then that's where we would draw the line.
Right. Would you say that the legality of abortion, again, because you brought up, would you say the legality of abortion is something that inflicts on your right to practice Christianity, or no?
I mean, maybe not necessarily, but it does inflict on the rights of human beings. Mm-hmm. Like I can still practice Christianity now. Because I'm a Christian, it does severely bother me, of course, that the sanctity of life is not being protected.
Right.
But I could also be a non-Christian and hold that same view. Lots of Orthodox Jews are also pro-life. Plenty of Muslims are also pro-life, and many atheists are pro-life. So I don't think that's necessarily infringing on my religious rights per se.
Yeah.
But it's definitely infringing on someone's rights, because I do accept that all human beings have rights, no matter how old they are, or their location, or their developmental stage.
Right. I would say that you said sanctity of life is important to you, specifically on the abortion issue. What we find is that in countries where abortion is actually legal, people have less and less abortions because they're much more careful. Oh, I'm so sorry. What we find is in countries where abortion is legal, people have less abortions because they know more about sexual education, so they're much, much more careful. So you see less of an abortion incidence. Obviously, it still happens, but because there is less risk of people getting pregnant, the sanctity of life is protected both in the case of the woman because maternal mortality rates are lower, and because infant mortality rates are lower. Okay. I would say there's a lot more than just making abortion legal. Like, I think if we made abortion legal today, that it wouldn't necessarily make the abortion rate go lower. I think we need to do a lot more things, but I think that would be part of the solution personally.
Okay, yeah, this is a common argument that I hear. I would say there's two things here. Number one is I don't necessarily care, because it's about the principle of the thing. We're protecting the sanctity of life. We're putting that into law. Now, could there be various effects of those policies? And could we try to deal with whatever's going on, whether it be changes in sexual education, if that needs to happen?
Yes.
Sure, but it's the principle of the thing.
Okay, so
number two is I actually reject the empirical evidence as well, because I mean, you can look at plenty of exceptions to this, but I think the easiest thing would be to just look at the United States, because we're seeing a consistent culture for the most part, and the same people, the same demographics. So if you look at the United States, a lot of people make the argument that there are less abortions happening under Democratic presidents, but that's just a surface level correlation. What they ignore is the actual abortion laws. So for example, under Bill Clinton, you had Casey v. Parenthood, which actually allowed for more restrictions of abortion on a state level, like informed consent, for example, and a lot of states adopted this. And under Obama, there were tons of state-level abortion laws that were passed. Actually, the Guttmacher Institute came out and said, this is unprecedented how many abortion laws are coming out under Obama. It wasn't because of him per se, it was because of a lot of things happening on the state level. And then
wait, when you say things happening on the state level, I just want to clarify. Do you mean like laws that are
laws restricting abortion, or making it harder to get an abortion, laws saying, you know, you have to have parental consent as a teenager to get abortion, informed consent, things like that, or making it harder for people to get government-funded abortion.
I would say,
and also, of course, under Biden, you know, Roe v. Wade was gotten rid of.
So what was your first point? Your first point was you like reject the premise. So would you be okay if, particularly in the United States, we like increase sex ed but didn't necessarily legalize abortion, because that would decrease incidence?
I mean, I think I personally reject the notion that. Well, you're not specifying like what sex ed. I don't.
Essentially, just entirely like risk based. So I think we don't need to tell people. I don't think we need to tell people how to do it. I think we do need to tell people, hey, if you decide to do this, first of all, celibacy is like the best thing you can do, obviously, right? But if you decide not to do that, here are the risks. I think we need to lay out risks just insanely clearly. And once we do that, that's pretty much all we can do.
As far as that goes, I think it should be evidence-based. I've seen mixed evidence, some evidence that suggests abstinence only does work, but this is also something that's probably cultural, like it probably should be left to the states, or even at a lower level than that, like by the school. But if it were to be the case that we changed sex ed to the point that abortions went down by 25% without changing any other law, I mean, that would be objectively good.
Yes. Right, and I think we do see that because in states where we don't have as much sex ed, like Oklahoma is like 4th in teen pregnancy last I remember. So when we look at states where sex ed is actually more prevalent, when we look at states where sex ed is actually more prevalent, we see less teen pregnancy incidents. We see less incidents where people would even be in the situation to get an abortion in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could be the case. I also think there are a lot of, like I said, different variables. Like, the big issue is just self-control, really. Like,
Yes,
I think most people...
I agree with that, but
they know what happens when they do certain things, right?
I agree with that, but I just don't think feasibly the government's going to come out and be like, okay, no premarital sex.
Well, no, I don't support that.
Feasibly, that's just not going to happen. So I think if we took other steps, if we took other steps rather than being like, okay, no premarital sex, that would be a better use of our time.
Yeah. If better education saved lives, then I would support better education for sure.
Yeah, I think better education.
But I would also support banning abortion if possible.
Yeah, I think if those countries, I couldn't tell you if those countries banned abortion, they would see more of them. I don't know if that correlational relationship equals a causational relationship, because the study I read said that, hey, these countries that have legalized abortion also have much better sex ed, much better education when it comes to the sorts of issues that can come with childbirth, and they have things like universal child care. So that's why I like looking at one country at a time. So there are studies. There's a study from the early 2000s looking at Poland specifically, and other Eastern European states, and they did see a decline. Yeah, Eastern. Okay. Poland, Eastern European. Yeah. I consider Poland to be Eastern Europe. I don't know if you disagree, but that's not really a big deal. Poland specifically, and Poland has some of the most restrictive, if not the most restrictive, abortion laws in Europe. Yeah. Or at least last I checked a couple of years ago. Right. And they saw a dramatic decline in abortion rates after they restricted it. Right. And there are also a lot of studies from the United States. Michael J. New, he's a researcher, and he has several studies published where he's looking at the effects of those KCV Planned Parenthood laws that were put into place in the 90s. Right. And there were dramatic decreases in abortions as those laws were being put into place. Right. And he's also done some more contemporary research after Roe v. Wade was gotten rid of, and there have been declines in abortions in places like Texas. Right. Just to clarify, is abortion banned in Texas? I'm pretty sure it is, right? It's heavily restricted. Yeah. Right. I think we focused a lot on your first point. What was your second point? Their first point was that you rejected the premise of... Yeah, I reject that premise, but also if I were to accept the premise, I would still say that I'm right, because the evidence does suggest that banning abortions does decrease abortions. Right. Like if you do these, like what the Guttmacher Institute does, these world analyses comparing all the different countries, I mean, you might see some correlations that would suggest otherwise, but that's not what I want to look at. I want to see, in the United States, if we put in these laws, will they actually decrease abortions? And they do. We saw that with the more recent laws. We saw that in the 90s with the KCV Planned Parenthood laws. Yeah. And we've seen it in Eastern Europe and other places. Right, but I would also say in the United States, because we've been so back and forth, especially on the issue of abortion, when we restrict it more and more, we see things like maternal mortality rate increase. Like the U.S. is the developed nation with the highest maternal mortality rate, and I think abortion is the reason why. Okay, right, but you can try to make that argument, but the problem is that every state in the United States that has restrictive abortion laws has an exception for if the mother's life is in danger. All of them. Every single one, including Texas. They all have an exception. And it just says that if a doctor believes the mother's life is in danger, that he can perform an emergency abortion. Or more specifically, what it says is it's a clause that says all of this applies except when the doctor believes that there is a medical emergency. And the doctor believing that there's a medical emergency is a very broad and sweeping power, right? How do you prove that somebody didn't believe something? It gives them almost complete impunity in court. I wish I was more refreshed on this. I would have been if I had known we would be debating abortion. I have done a lot of research in the past on the maternal mortality stuff. Yes. And I do think there are a lot of issues because
like, for one, there are abortion deaths, and there are several states that do not report abortion deaths,
Right.
like California, for example. And abortions can be quite risky, maybe less so today. But I do have a lot of issues with some of the studies that suggest the maternal mortality rate would suffer. Like, there was this one that I saw that a lot of people were citing, like Dean Withers types, Harry Sisson types. They were
Yeah.
citing this one paper, and I read it.
Yeah.
And what it was doing was it was taking the nationwide data, comparing the deaths from abortion to maternal mortality deaths in places where it was more restricted.
Right.
And what they were ignoring was that a lot of states were not reporting certain data, and they weren't accounting for that, and they came to absurd conclusions. And there is also there are a lot of studies looking at deaths that come from abortions, and it is a big risk.
Yes.
So I wish I could go more into detail. It's been like 3 years since I've researched
Oh,
this.
you're all good. Yeah.
But I definitely would. I would do the research again, but I would reject the notion that it will necessarily increase maternal mortality rates. But even if it did, minutely, and we're ultimately saving more lives, and we do have, like Cam said, those laws that are trying to protect women as much as possible, then I do think that it's worth it.
I would say pretty much in every case. I believe there was a case in Georgia where a woman went brain dead, and because of Georgia's abortion law, she had to carry her baby to term while she was fully brain dead.
Not true. Again, I forget her name.
Yeah, I
But
forgot her
again,
name too, but-
not only does Georgia have an exception for if the mother's life is in danger, which again just says none of this applies if the doctor reasonably believes the mother's life is in danger. It
Right, but
also.
the-
You're talking about the brain debt. She had.
Yeah, she
Oh
was
yeah, this is
brain
totally. Yeah, totally makes sense.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
was,
no. Wait, what's the issue with this?
She was okay. The issue is she was completely brain dead. She was basically used as an incubator to carry her child.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that is that child is now going to grow up without a mom.
As opposed to not growing up?
Yeah, like there's a chance that anybody could grow up without a mom. It doesn't mean they don't deserve to live, right? If the mother is in a situation where she's brain dead, she's effectively dead, but her body can be kept alive so that the baby doesn't die, why wouldn't we do that? I don't understand why people had such an issue with this. By the way, not a new practice. We've been doing this for as long as it's been medically possible to do this. If there's a car accident and a mother dies, but she's able to be kept alive, her body kept alive, right? But she's brain dead and she has a baby inside of her, we always keep her alive. It's common medical practice. This is only controversial because people think it has something to do with abortion laws, but it doesn't. In a lot of states, it's actually illegal to let the mother die.
And it just it does sound bad. Like when you say it and when you read a headline like a brain dead woman was kept alive so they could use her as an incubator. That sounds really, weird, right? But like there's a lot of things we do that are weird that aren't necessarily bad. Like cuz there's two options here. One, you let the baby die. Two, you use her body, which she's not using anymore because she's brain dead, and preserve the life of the baby. I mean, I think we have this issue where people go brain dead and we're like, okay, what would they want us to do, right? Or we'll have like somebody taking care of them, their family saying, here's what we want you to do. Obviously, we have to consider that, but I think it would be completely rational to assume if anybody were to go brain dead while pregnant, they would want their child to be preserved. So I think that should probably be like the blanket assumption.
Right, but I think the issue was, and I might be totally wrong about this, but I think the issue was that the law interfered, whether she wanted it or not, whether her family wanted it or not.
The law interfered, but it wasn't a new law. It was illegal to let her die because she had a baby inside of her. But that had nothing to do with Roe v. Wade. It had nothing to do with abortion laws. It wasn't illegal because of abortion laws. It was just that you're not allowed to basically pull the plug on somebody who has a baby in them. That's the problem, right? So the baby is carried to term, and it makes no sense to do this, to do the opposite. Like, the mother's dead, she's not coming back. Her body is alive. The baby is alive. Why would you pull the plug? Nobody's using the corpse except the baby. The baby didn't do anything wrong. It doesn't make sense to say, oh, we've suffered this catastrophic loss of a human life, now let's kill another one. It just doesn't make any sense. If you can somehow walk away from this tragic situation where somebody is dead and somebody gets to live,
Okay.
I think you should do that. I don't know why you wouldn't. Right? If I was pregnant, if I was a woman, right, which I can't be, evidently, thanks to the sign. Yeah. So if I was if I was a woman and I was pregnant and I had a baby, like I would really hope that if I went brain dead, the doctors would not pull the plug on me and allow my baby to remain alive.
Right.
You know. So.
It might just be I don't know enough about the situation.
Sure.
And also, like I said, it does sound nasty, right?
It's a pretty nasty.
But
Yeah.
there's a lot of things we do that are really weird. I mean, we forcefully inseminate cows so that we can eat, right?
Yeah.
Like forceful insemination of cows. It's like, yeah, I wouldn't do that personally. I mean, but we also have like sewage plants and things like that. Yeah, there's a lot of gross things that we do, but it just comes as a result of what is necessary.
Yeah. I'm vegetarian, so I don't.
I thought you were talking about Amber.
I'm making your argument for you, huh?
I thought you were talking about Amber Thurman, who's another person in Georgia who she died because she had basically like a portion of a fetus inside of her from a failed abortion, and she ended up dying. But like Georgia has a double exception for if the mother's life is in danger and if the fetus is like I don't know what you call it. Like there's like a 0% chance it will live. So Georgia makes both of those exceptions, and it wasn't even a fetus. It was like some fetal tissue.
Okay.
And it went rotten, and it gave her sepsis. And she died. But it was the result of a failed abortion. Like she went to another state and got abortion pills, and generally you're supposed to do a follow-up appointment after you receive the pills. But because of the under-the-table kind of state-to-state dealings that we're doing now, people aren't doing those follow-up appointments, and it's not safe. And so she died as a result of that because the doctors refused to take it out of her because they're idiots, and they were committing medical malpractice. If they were familiar with the law in the state, they would have known that you were allowed to remove that, basically. But and then people say, well, doctors can't know every law. It's like, no, like actually doctors, like law governs their entire practice. Like you have to know how much you're legally allowed to give somebody,
I think at the
what
very
kinds
least,
of drugs.
I think at the very least you know the Hippocratic Oath.
Yeah.
Yeah. If nothing else, I think you know the Hippocratic Oath.
Yeah.
And I can't believe I didn't ask this already, but do you believe like abortion at all stages is wrong? Like as soon as conception happens,
Yes.
there's like from that point forward.
Yeah, no. So with human rights, I believe that we need to have equality, and in order to have equal human rights, you need inclusivity. So you have to be able to include infants, like newborns. You have to be able to include the mentally disabled, the elderly, things like that. And it also has to be binary. You either have rights or you don't. You don't have like half rights, right? Or at least with most human rights. I think there are some where it's like, you know, with consent, we don't allow children to consent, or at least not consent to everything.
Yes.
And then obviously, you know, you can have rights within a country where like an illegal immigrant wouldn't have that right to vote, for example. But if we're talking about like the baseline human right that you get to live, and nobody can kill you, or at least, you know, we'll try not to let them kill you, or we'll punish them if they do. Then I think every human should have that. So if we tie human rights to something that is not binary, like consciousness or subjective experience or whatever else, or development, then what we're going to have is an issue where either like animals are going to have the same rights as humans because some animals have a higher stage of consciousness than newborns, or we say infanticide is okay, or it's okay to kill mentally disabled people, or it's okay to kill somebody in a coma or under anesthesia. So I just want to be, I think, you know, it is necessary that we have these rights, and if we want to show that these rights are real, we have to have these two criterion, and most of the things that pro-choice people don't fit them.
Yeah, I would say,
or all of them, I should say.
I would say I am pro-choice up to like 20 to 24 weeks.
Okay, so is it because of like consciousness, or?
Yeah, it's when like your upper brain stem develops and you can deploy what we kind of understand to be consciousness.
Right. Yeah. So with that, it's just like that's kind of arbitrary because number one, obviously, I mean, you're a vegan. I don't know if you're a vegan because you're religious, or vegetarian because you're religious, or you think animals have rights, or.
It's not. I just think we ought not to kill what's alive.
Okay, so it's a little bit more tricky.
What about this spider right here? Can I kill this spider?
I've been seeing that spider for 30 minutes.
Is it wrong?
I would say if you don't have to, don't.
Rage baiting. Okay, it is a little bit more difficult to argue with a vegetarian on this, I will admit.
Okay.
But even then, like, I could say, well, you're saying what's alive, right? I mean, I don't think that spider really had much of a consciousness.
Oh my God, there's another one.
There's a lot of spiders. I don't think that spider has much of a consciousness, right? I mean, and bugs don't, and, you know, there's animal fetuses as well. I mean,
Right.
I don't think you think we should be going around, like, smashing eggs, like bird eggs, ostrich eggs, and stuff like that, or aborting animals just for the LOLs. If we're going by the standard of living things, then I mean, I think, like, you know, if you don't want to kill animals, that's okay. With me, religiously, morally, I don't see a problem with it. But
I would religiously, obviously, I'm opposed to abortion such that I'm abstaining until marriage, because I think that's like the best and easiest way to just avoid the problem entirely. Like, if it came down to it, I wouldn't want whoever it was to get an abortion, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I can't see myself saying we ought to make laws to make it such that other people can't get them.
Well, I appreciate that you have that moral and that you're taking steps to.
Yeah, I'm deontological, but only to like the point of myself. I don't see myself forcing another person legally to have to.
You clearly feel strong about this. Let's come have a conversation. Come have a conversation. Come have a conversation. Come express your strong beliefs, please. You'll never find a solution if you don't talk to people who disagree with you.
It's a professional fuckboy.
You will never find a solution to the problems you see in the world unless you talk to the people who disagree with you. They stand directly in the way of the solution to the problem you want to find.
That man eats kale for breakfast. That man eats kale for breakfast.
You're saying I'm intellectually dishonest. I'm the one sitting down talking to people. You're the one running by screaming fascist.
That man sits when he pees.
Come talk. You will never find a solution to the issues you care about until you sit across from somebody who disagrees with you and you talk to them. You refusing to speak to people who disagree with you are exactly why the country remains divided. You are exactly why the country will continue to fail to find solutions.
That man washes his hands after he gets out of the shower.
Fascists don't sit down and talk to people. Fascists shut people down and run away. Dumbass.
Yeah, you know what you saw in Nazi Germany and fascist Italy? You saw a bunch of people sitting down and debate, hey, fascism is true, prove me wrong. Yeah, that's what you saw. Go Google it. You'll see lots of pictures of that. All right, sorry about that.
I'm so sorry. Where were we?
Yeah, so if your standard is we have to protect all living things, then a fetus is living objectively, biologically.
Yes. And I would say that I personally have an obligation to do that, but I can't. But again, I can't see myself supporting a law that says other people have to follow my same ethic.
I gotcha. I mean, how far do we carry this, though? Right? Like, I think it's wrong to beat your children. Not to say you can't spank them or whatever, or punish them, but to, like, actually beat your children.
Right.
And I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But, like, do I have to say, oh, you know, if someone else does it, that's not really my problem, right? Like, obviously there has to be a line that we draw where we say, you know, I'm saying this is wrong. I believe it's wrong, and it is affecting someone else. Like, if someone's going to go and be an alcoholic, you know, I don't think you should be an alcoholic. But ultimately, if we can't help them and they're not going to listen to us and they're just going to keep drinking their life away, you know, I feel sad for them. I don't want that to happen. But, like, do I think we should grab them and lock them up and punish them for that? Probably not. Not in my opinion. Some people might disagree.
I would say I kind of feel the same way about it.
But if he's like drunk driving and like crashing everywhere, then maybe we should do something, because now he's harming other people.
Yes. I would say I kind of feel the same way about abortion.
Oh, so but I mean, still, like, if they are taking another life, then don't you think that's different?
If they can't see that life the same way, like I can plead to them. I can tell them, hey, this is morally wrong. You ought to have just avoided this in the first place. I can tell them what I think is correct, but I can't necessarily force them legally to.
Well, I don't think they would be committing any of these acts, like the drunk driving and crashing into a van with a family of 5, if they thought it was like a really wrong thing to do. But also, I mean, there's people who blatantly say infanticide is okay. Like Peter Singer, who's a renowned philosopher.
Right.
I use the word renowned loosely, but he's a very famous philosopher, and he says infanticide is okay, and many other famous philosophers say that as well. And he has a lot of followers, he has a lot of people who agree with him. I've encountered them time and time again. If those people committed infanticide, like, yeah, I should say they should be punished.
Right, infanticide, like, as in...
Like murdering a newborn.
Murdering newborn, okay.
Yeah.
I think at that point, like, pretty much everyone, except for the people who follow him, would agree that was wrong, yeah.
So if it was the case that a large majority of people were pro-life, you would say that we could ban it?
I think if people are pro-life and they're like truly pro-life, they're not even getting themselves into the situation where like abortion's a problem.
Oh no, I mean like a majority of people are pro-life, and then there's a minority that wants abortion.
If there's a minority that wants abortion?
Yeah. Because I mean, here we're basically getting into the consensus theory of truth, which I don't know what your religion is, but I would assume as a religious person you don't believe in the consensus theory of truth, to where, you know, a majority of people say something and therefore we go along with it, or even a consensus theory. I don't
believe it's moral. I believe that.
Yeah, that's my mistake. I think I falsely consensus theory of law. That's what this would be, not consensus theory of truth.
Rather,
That's my bad. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say this would be like saying that because the majority of people were cool with slavery in the early years of this country, that it's justified to be legal.
That was pretty much how all laws happened, though. Whether they were bad laws or good laws. Obviously, from a moral standpoint, you can look at the Bible, or you can look at pretty much any like religious text that says slavery was wrong. You'd be like, oh yeah, slavery was wrong.
I mean, it is the case that it's not necessarily the case, but it is the case that oftentimes when you're implementing a new law, there's at least a large base that supports it. But that's not necessarily the case, and we're more so talking about what ought to be illegal. Like, I would really love it if a majority of people became pro-life, and then as a result of that, we were able to change the law. Yeah. But like, I still think we ought to have this law. Yeah.
I personally just wish people were more like anti-premarital sex, personally, because that's the whole reason.
That would fix a lot of things.
That gets rid of the whole like, oh, what about kids who go to foster care argument? Because it's like, they're not being born, they're not going to foster care.
Yeah, and it would save a lot of families from not having a father. They're not dying either because they're not being conceived. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you there. We're going to have to disagree on the whole law thing. Like, I just don't see any reason why we should keep it legal. I mean, I appreciate that you hold those morals yourself, and that, of course, you don't want to harm. I believe you're coming from a place where you don't want to harm other people. Absolutely. But ultimately, you know, if they are harming a baby, if they are harming another human being, then it's just necessary that we do implement that law. And I do think there is evidence that these laws do reduce abortions and save lives, even when it comes to mothers. And I mean, is there anybody else who wants to debate right now, or we can keep you up here? If not.
I mean, yeah. If everybody else wants to turn.
I guess not. So I mean, if you have any more things you want to talk about, that's cool.
Ooh. I wanted to try to choose.
Where's that guy who was calling a fascist?
I don't know.
He ran away.
He's running from fascists. That's what he's doing.
Do you disagree with the premise?
Not really, but I do have some caveats that I'm interested in your guys' thoughts, or just to...
You have to talk kind of close to the mic.
Yeah, just to hedge a little bit, just to see where you guys are at.
What's up?
I was wondering if you guys think that there is an internal experience of gender. Like, if I took your brain and put it in a woman's body, if something would just intuitively feel off in that situation.
Yeah, I think it would feel weird, but ultimately you'd still be whatever your body reflects.
Whatever your body reflects?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that difference that you would feel, I think, would be wildly uncomfortable, though. I mean, like, I guess...
Yeah, it's a mental illness. Yeah, I'm sure it is uncomfortable. Yeah, but for no other mental illness do we tell people... like for schizophrenia, we don't say, listen to the voices in your head. If you're anorexic or bulimic, we don't say... yeah, you are fat, and give them a dietary plan. We acknowledge they have a mental illness, and we try to treat that and suppress that mental illness rather than affirming it.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I think that with those two examples, or a lot of the examples I hear a lot, the difference is that there are like medical outcomes to those decisions to affirming that kind of belief, where I don't know if the medical outcome is the same. Now, if you extrapolate this to kids or something ridiculous like that,
What do you mean by medical outcomes?
Like, so for anorexia, if you allowed them to think that, you know, they are fat when they're not, that's going to cause them to eat, which is going to have adverse health related risks, something like that.
Right.
Same with
Well,
schizophrenia,
I think
they
there
might
are adverse
eat a
health
bug.
effects associated with being transgender, like, for example, killing yourself. Which,
Yeah,
if you
but-
look at transgender people, the suicide rate is much higher in people who have transitioned than in people who have not. So I think when you continue to affirm a mental illness that oftentimes results in suicide or suicidal ideation, I think you do have adverse medical effects, and those adverse medical effects are death.
Well, that's comorbidity. That's not like a direct consequence, I get. Like, well, at least it's up for debate as to, you know, chicken or the egg.
Well,
which side,
why
right?
would you say that, like, schizophrenic people shouldn't listen to their voices in their head, right? The voices are probably telling them to do things you don't want them to do, like kill themselves, other people, hurt people, maybe just do weird stuff. Like, you don't want... We wouldn't affirm that.
Yeah, but what are the
Because it's a
voices in
mental
the trans
illness.
people's heads telling them to do?
Well, they're not schizophrenic.
No,
right?
I know, but like,
So-
what would be the
Right. Well,
the correlative?
What they're doing is pretending that they are something they are not, which causes them to be depressed because they're not that thing, and because nobody accepts them as that thing because they're not it.
Well, I think that that presupposes the whole argument, right? Because the argument is that, at least from the left's ideology, the argument is that by not affirming their beliefs, that's causing the suicidality. I think that's kind of a stretch, right?
Well, but they say
you can't
that,
just like
they say
posit
that not affirming their beliefs causes the suicidal ideation, but I could cite you 5 different studies right now that show that suicide and suicidal behavior is higher in people who have already received gender affirming surgeries.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind that externality, but I don't think. I guess what is the correlate? That might be how society, I guess, treats them, but I think that the evidence is not convincing that affirming these beliefs is going to have positive outcomes. But I guess the hedge that I'm trying to make is, if it did, would you guys be supportive of it?
What do you mean if it were to cause positive outcomes? In what
If
way?
it were to not have the outcomes that, like, you're stating it is,
No,
so
I
like the
still don't care,
lowered
because
suicidality. What if it increased all health benefits for all people, or who were truly trans? Like, we had a scan that could find out
I don't think
you were
anybody is truly trans. I don't think you can
or
be
gender
transgender.
dysmorphia.
Yeah, so I think it doesn't change the underlying conundrum that it's false. Men can't be women, and no matter how hard you try to be a woman, you will never be a woman. You will never be a woman. I will never be a woman. He will never be a woman. I'll never be a dog. I'll never be a cat. I'll never be a frog. You can't be things just because you want to or believe that you are those things, and that is an objective fact that cannot be changed or altered. Now, if it was, like, do I care if somebody puts on a dress that's not a woman? No, I think it's weird, but I don't. People do weird stuff all the time, and it's fine. You can do weird stuff. I don't think that doctors, however, should be affirming a mental illness. I think that mental illnesses should be treated and taken care of rather than told they are true. Like schizophrenia, again, you don't tell people the voices are true. You don't give dietary plans to people with anorexia or bulimia. Dietary plans, I mean, that would make them skinnier, right? Because they have the belief that they are too fat when they're not.
Sure.
So in that regard, I actually think that it should be considered medical malpractice to affirm gender with surgery or hormones.
I completely agree with you descriptively. I guess I'm trying to play in this like prescriptive realm of like, if the consequences were what the left is saying that it is supposed to be, it seems like we should be somewhat supportive of this. I know that there was this really interesting psychological study where they had people who had no control over whether a light turned on, hit a button, and then report how much control they had over whether that light came on, even though the light didn't come on, whether they hit the button or not. And they found that people who thought that they had more control over the light, which they had none, people who had this untrue belief were significantly happier than anybody else, despite the belief that they having not true. So the consequences of believing this are very positive, despite it not being like descriptively true. And I think that this is like an interesting conundrum kind of idea. A lot of people, especially like atheists, will argue that this is how religious people are. So even if you say that the descriptive truth of whether God is real or not isn't as important as the fact that, Christianity built this nation and all that stuff.
For me, it doesn't
right?
really change my belief at all because it doesn't alter the fact that it's not true.
I guess
so
why not?
My primary qualm with the whole issue is that men are not women. And there are also negative side effects associated with the belief that men can be women. Like, for example, men being allowed in women's spaces, like in locker rooms, or participating in women's sports resulting in injury of women. Women being uncomfortable in their locker rooms because there's a guy with a penis in there, right? Women feeling uncomfortable in their bathrooms. There's a reason why we segregate, like, personal private spaces like bathrooms and locker rooms. And
yeah, I totally agree with you on all of this. I'm trying to cross that line between description and prescription.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I just don't understand why the truth is holding this kind of bearing on
it doesn't
the decision.
well, because I care about the truth. I think that we should preserve the truth at all costs, and ultimately, whether or not it's good for them or not does not change the whether or not it's true.
So
and it's not true, and we shouldn't pretend that it is true. I don't think that lying to people is ever going to benefit them, really. Like lying about what you are. If you claim you're a frog and I tell you are a frog, I don't think that's going to help you. I think it's probably going to worsen your mental state. Do you have anything to add, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of hypotheticals that you could come up with. Like, hypothetically, if we did this false thing, hypothetically, if we did this thing that's considered evil now in reality, what if it was actually good? I mean, some of this stuff is interesting to think about in, deep philosophical conversations. That's probably not quite what we're doing here.
Sure.
Like a guy earlier, he was talking about like the nature of social constructs and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I could talk to you about that for like 2 hours, but
sure,
it could be the case that, in a long conversation, we could come to the conclusion that, maybe I would support transgender people getting surgery as long as it actually genuinely helps them. But I think for things like this, we're talking about actual policy.
Yeah,
and it's like, I don't really care about the hypotheticals.
No, and I totally get that inclination, and I'd fall somewhere there too. I guess the reason why I bring it up is that in a world right now, it feels like every statistic that you bring up or every fact, you have the opposition saying, no, this is the fact and this is the truth, and it's somewhat hard to kind of find that. I mean, so you have to play in this prescriptive realm sometimes to be like, okay, I'm holding my moral value because it would be objectively true that it is beneficial to affirm trans rights if that were true, right? And so we should pursue that truth, and not their just descriptive truth.
Something to notice is you're right. For everything that we will say is true or is a fact, there is somebody on the other side who will say that we are wrong and what we are saying is not true. But if you notice, the majority of those people will refuse to come up to that microphone and talk to us about it. Instead, they shout fascist from the sideline. So we are here inviting those people to come prove us incorrect, to come disprove with what they believe are facts, but they most of the time won't.
Yeah.
Well, if they do, they'll do a very poor job of it.
Yeah. The scary part is a lot of people who are doing open dialogue like this won't change when presented with the information. I don't see it as a super common thing. Holy moly!
Oopsie.
I didn't realize that was such a strong statement.
You just blew the house away.
I was gonna say, tearing the roof off.
Mic drop.
Woke college student tears roof off of Change My Mind event.
That's gonna be the YouTube
the thumbnail and the title. Yeah, damn.
Almost got killed by that.
Sue somebody, sue Lance.
Raise up your
Bro, what?
You can sue.
Woke liberal college student destroys tent with his mind.
Rages. You can use that in the thumb. I actually do a political podcast here on campus, so I would love the.
Oh, that's awesome.
The political commenter throws roof off the event or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, so like, ultimately, when it is tough because you're encountering all these statistics. This is something that I found very tough back when I started this 6 years ago. And what I did was I just started studying everything as much as I could. I was studying statistics, just learning, how do you have a good study. And I would also look into the counter arguments on everything. Like, you don't just hear something, but man, that sounds cool or good or true. I'm going to believe it. You've got to see what other people are saying. And the people pushing back might not be right. They might be right. But, if whatever you're looking into, whether it's history, you need to know, like, methods for determining historical fact and how to assess sources, things like that, or statistics, studies. woke college student destroys people.
The chat
was me,
is
guys.
saying CNN's headline will be MAGA activists attack liberal students with 10.
With 10. Right. Yeah, I think that the difficult part with this particular issue, though, is that it is so new that like all of the longitudinal studies that we are supposed to do to assess this kind of benefit can't be done or haven't completed themselves yet. You'll have some that are like somewhat short, but I'm sure you guys are familiar with like people are like love their change after 3 months, and it's like, of course, it's only been 3 months, right? So I know you guys are familiar with these, but
especially with the trans kid stuff, I've seen some studies. There's one in JAMA. I think it was like 3 months, and it was looking at female to male transitioners and specifically testosterone. The sample size was like 40 something, and it was like 3 months. And they're looking at depression, which is what's interesting is that testosterone is a natural antidepressant.
Right.
So it's like we're not even.
Specifically testosterone. The sample. The size.
So we're not even considering, the other factors, other things that could, like, for example, if you have a young girl who's going through puberty, you put her on testosterone, it'll actually weaken her vaginal lining. And if she's engaged in intercourse, it can actually break through that vaginal lining and cause her to bleed to death. And there's been many cases where girls started bleeding because of this, because they weren't made aware that this even happens. So, you read these, and they cite these studies all the time. I could cite a million of them.
Yeah.
On my YouTube, I actually debated this liberal content creator for about over an hour. Dude was almost crying by the end of it because he thought he had all his special studies.
Sure.
And I watched him prep for the debate. He went over all the studies, found them, and I was like, I'm going to look into all these, read them, read the people who have critiqued them. And so I'm explaining to him attrition bias and the fact that he's citing studies with a sample size of 2 people to justify transitioning children. I'm like, man, this is crazy. Like, you just can't do this. And by the end, he conceded. Props to him for doing that. He said, I don't have the argument to back this up. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's a lot of work. I would know.
No, right. Well, the difficulty in this particular issue with the lack of evidence kind of on both sides is that both sides are claiming that there is life on the line, that there is like something to be done. That's like the weaponization, like, would you rather have a trans daughter or a dead son, something like that, right? Where it's this like emotional appeal. But there is some validity to that kind of idea in that like you're playing this kind of risk without this kind of evidence. And that's why I think it's really important to ask these prescriptive questions. I also think it's important for the audience to know that if presented with information, you need to have something that can falsify these beliefs. Otherwise, you're just like peddling for the truth for no reason. You're just doing it because it feels good.
We're not peddling for the truth for no reason. We're peddling for the truth because the truth is important. Right?
Well, the truth could be that it is better for kids to transition.
Right.
That could be the truth.
That could be the truth, but
And
that
you
doesn't
should
change,
appeal to that
that
if
doesn't
you find
change the
that
fact
out.
that it can't be true that men can be women. So like,
Right,
if
those
it's
are two
good, if
different
it's good for
statements, though.
boys to dress up in dresses, that's different than it's boys can be girls, right? Those are not two mutually exclusive statements. Both can be true at the same time. Mm-hmm. It can be good for boys to wear dresses, but it's also true that boys can't be girls. Yeah. So we're just saying boys can't be girls. That's it.
Yeah, but I guess the question, that's why
these
again,
two particular claims would not be changed at all, even if
Sure.
the evidence came out that like transitioning dramatically helped people,
Right.
which I don't think we have good enough evidence to say that. But.
Yeah, well, the next step is I know kind of cringe, but the next step is that rhetoric plays a role into this as well. And so when you say statements like this, regardless of their truth, you would try to make another prescriptive claim about like, saying that men can't be women is a somewhat brass way of saying it, and then maybe
I would use evidence if we got to if somebody came up here and they're like, but kids can be trans. I would argue linguistics, things like that. I would argue that trans isn't really a real thing. Nobody's actually been able to point to what being transgender really is, other than merely identifying as it. So if you say, "Oh, identify as trans," I mean, what does that mean? What are you, right?
Okay.
So I would argue that. But then if they said, well, if kids say they're trans and they transition, it helps them, according to this study from 2020 in JAMA, the journal JAMA, I would say, okay, I know about that one. Diane Tordoff, here's all the issues with it. Here's the data. I might pull it up on my phone. Here's the attrition bias, stuff like that. And I would say, that's why I'm not convinced on that. So I get your concern, but I think me and Cam are pretty well versed on stuff like that, and we're definitely trying to be as good faith as possible, and we don't intend to fall into anything where we're saying something in a dishonest way or anything like that. But if something like that came up, I would use the actual evidence, and I would say, here's what the facts are.
Okay, this would be my last point. I have not played around with this, so let me know what you guys think. I'll wait till the Chick-fil-A is delivered.
God's chicken.
So this must be the best part of the job, huh?
All right, what you got?
Yeah, so I was playing around with I had heard Dean Withers say something about the what is a woman answer, and he had said something along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's like saying that like a woman is someone who identifies with a set of characteristics that are commonly referring to the female gender, something along those lines. Is why I hear a lot of pushback on this definition. Why is this not sufficient, I guess? Like, why does this not explain?
A woman is someone who identifies.
Yeah, sorry.
I've heard Parker, and I actually personally know Dean and Parker. He probably personally knows a couple of them too.
Yeah. So
and by the way, Dean's a total fraud. But yeah, what is it again?
It's a woman is someone who identifies with a particular set of social characteristics that normally align with the female gender, something like that.
Okay, I mean, when it comes to stuff like this, I want to ask people, what's your justification for that? Like, what's your justification for this definition? And also, you know, what they're doing is they're taking some niche little definition and just asserting, like, this is the definition now because I said so. Like, how many people have even said that sentence before Dean Withers said it, right?
Sure.
Like,
well, the idea is, you know, I agree with
and
you.
maybe that ought to be the definition, but like,
well, that's
we're
what
not
the
at the point
conversation
where,
is about, right?
Yeah.
You know, when you're asking what is a woman, you're not saying like quote Webster's to me. You're saying like, what do you mean when you just the Jordan Peterson thing? Like, what do you mean when you say woman, right?
Do you think when the majority of people say woman,
I think they do mean this.
they mean what Dean said? You think so?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think that they articulate it within their heads, but this is why people make mistakes when
Yeah.
they're like.
So you think the majority of people would agree that a transgender woman is actually a woman and the same as a regular woman?
Not in the same as a regular woman. They would say that they're a trans woman.
Under
Yeah.
Dean's definition, a trans woman would be the same as any other woman.
Yeah, so this would be like a prescriptive move from like how we should call women to where they are. So it's not like the current thing necessarily, but the idea is that like this is a more encompassing, accurate view of what people say when they mean women.
What's up?
Sorry, I'm not much of a social person. So
That's
this might
okay.
be a moment.
No worries. You just got to talk a little close to the mic.
Yeah, I noticed.
Yeah, it doesn't pick up very well.
Okay. We'll do the first one, but we'll do it really fast.
Okay. Men can't be women. What's your disagreement?
My disagreement isn't necessarily whether I'm saying it's truth or wrong, because I'm not a biologist. I'm more of a question of why do you care?
Because it's an objective fact, and I care about preserving the truth and maintaining the truth. I think once you start to
To what
degrade
end, though?
to the end of preserving the truth, I think when you start degrading the truth, I think it opens up an allowance for a lot of untrue things to happen that damage society.
See,
right?
the real problem, I guess, I'm going to have, and it's not something that can be remedied here, not because of bad faith or anything, but if talking about it here, where it's out in the open, hasn't been planned beforehand, don't get me wrong, planning could lead to bad things too, but it leads to not being able to use studies. It leads to not being able to use experts.
Why can't you use studies?
Experts.
I don't. Well, you can use experts.
I can't use studies because I came up out of nowhere as a bystander.
You can. Well, I mean, if you're going to make claims, you can back it up with studies. I don't think
that's
you
why I'm
really.
not making
I don't
claims.
think you really need studies to talk about whether or not a man can be a woman. Generally, this is going to be a linguistic argument.
Well, an opinion one, really. Just because I can't bring studies.
It's not
'cause it's
quite an
not.
opinion. You could bring studies. I mean, people have come up here
If
and
it's
cited
something I
studies
already
today.
know beforehand, but I'm not an expert.
Sure,
That's why
you don't need to be an expert.
But that's why I said I'm not touching that one for very
Okay.
long. That was quick.
So that's
The
is
one, and I'm not touching the second one
that okay?
because that one's going to require studies
Okay.
before it's really something to talk about. The third one, easy common ground, deport all illegals. They do something illegal, then they should be deported. I'm
Yep.
fine with that statement.
Okay.
The real problem that I think happens is that people call even. Do I need to get closer?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm really tall for this.
Go ahead.
But the real problem is that even people just saying they don't have a green card, they're an illegal. Like,
Yeah.
that's a lot of what's going on.
Yeah,
right
if
now.
you don't have a visa or permission to be in this country, you are illegal. And you said yourself that if somebody has committed a crime,
Yes.
then they
and
should
I
be
said
deported.
I don't have a disagreement with
Well,
that.
100% of all illegal immigrants have committed a crime. Violation of 8 U.S. Code 1325, improper entry by alien, or the overstay of a visa. So all illegal immigrants have committed a crime and breached federal law. It doesn't matter if they've committed a crime on top of that, they are still in violation of federal law.
Okay, let me approach it differently. So, a lot of the issues I have is that even on a day-to-day basis, I regularly see news, left, right-leaning, it don't matter, of people getting deported whether they're illegal or not.
Can you name me one person who
Hyundai plant.
has been deported
All of
as a
them.
legal immigrant?
All of the Hyundai plant people.
What Hyundai plant people? Can you show me a source?
Well, if you're going to make me. Let me look it up. I believe it was Georgia, but I'm not sure. And it was in the last, 2-3 months?
We talked about this in Georgia. They were all illegals.
They weren't illegals, though. They
Do
were
you have a source that says they weren't illegals?
Yes, I can find one.
Did they have a social security?
No, they had work visas.
Citizens don't have work visas.
That has nothing to do with being illegal. What he said is that you can have to have either the permission to be
Wait.
here, like a green card, or a work visa. Work visa is permission to be here, not illegal.
If my state ID expires, do I get deported?
That has nothing to do with this one. This was a few months ago because it is a new Hyundai plant. They were given work visas in the last few months.
How many got deported?
I'm getting there.
Wait, Hyundai themselves said that they have zero tolerance for people who don't follow the law, and they were cool.
That
with
has
the
nothing to do
deportation.
with this.
Wait. Hyundai, the employer, is acknowledging that they were illegal immigrants.
They are not. In fact,
Prove it.
I'm getting there.
Okay, well you have to. I don't know why you would say it if you don't have something that proves it.
Even Trump says he was very much opposed to massive ICE raid on Hyundai plant that led to hundreds of arrests and deportations.
I don't think he's saying that.
What
because-
led up to it? Let me get the
We
story.
know they
at
were
least.
deported, but why?
What that led up to? Because someone called an ICE raid for it. Like
Yeah, but you're
a
saying.
citizen,
This is the point. You're saying they were legal immigrants.
They were not immigrants. They were work visa people.
Okay, were their visas valid?
Yes.
Okay, prove it.
Yeah, right here. The guy in charge of the plant said they did not have the proper work visas, and this is CNN.
So they were in the country illegally,
Just
without
a
proper
moment.
work visas, and they were put on a chartered flight back to South Korea. These were South Koreans.
And from what I can read, there's a lot to read about this, obviously, but it looks like, Trump was criticizing this because it happened very quickly, and there was precedent to deport them because they were overstaying their visas. There were plans to kind of fix this, and there was just like miscommunication. It was a bit messy. Maybe the situation could have been resolved a little better, where they could have gotten their visas renewed, or they could have gone back to South Korea on their own and then came back to the U.S. to work. But I mean, as far as them being deported and being legal, that doesn't seem to be the case. And I think this makes sense. It would have been preferable for there not to be like 300 workers gone overnight. But that's the way it happened, and they didn't break any laws doing it. ICE didn't.
They were illegally present in the country, and they were illegally working at Hyundai. They were deported, put on a chartered flight back to their country. So if you could cite another example. Yeah. If you could cite another example of legal residents being deported, I'd love to see it.
Well, let's just do that one where the guy was sent over to El Salvador, brought back, and
Kilmar Abrego Garcia was not a legal resident of the United States. He violated 8 U.S. Code 1325, improper entry by alien, and illegally immigrated to this country. He was actually under a deportation order. It was just withholding removal to El Salvador. So he wasn't supposed to be sent to El Salvador, but he could have been sent to literally anywhere else. He was not a legal resident of the U.S.
I guess that's all I got.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Okay. I guess I'll sort of lump the first two together and then kind of talk about that. The men can't be women and kids can't be trans. I think to start, it's important to acknowledge that language is fluid and that the meanings of words change.
Yes.
throughout history that's happened, you know what I mean, over and over. That's pretty easy to agree to, right?
Yep.
And I think in the last probably 15 to 20 years, one of the shifts that has occurred is the definitions of gender, where for a long time the definition of gender was something that was intrinsically linked to biological sex, and in the last 15 to 20 years that has shifted. And so
think it's
when we
shifted?
say that something, or when we say that someone is a man or someone is a woman, we're referring to gender, and we are no longer referring to biological sex, which would be male or female assigned at birth.
And do you think colloquially that's what the majority of people mean? Do you think that the majority of people in the country, when they see a transgender woman, look at that person and view them no differently than that woman right there?
I don't know. I don't have the information to know that 51% of the people that say men are referring to biological sex or gender.
I would find it hard to believe that 20% of the population would believe that a transgender woman is the same as that woman right there.
So use that in a sentence. There's a man over there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so there's a man over there. We're talking,
You're talking
about a
about a
person.
transgender woman?
I would say that majority of the time, if someone were to use the sentence, there is a man over there, they're referring to someone that is masculine presenting.
No, I think that
And
they're
whether
referring
or
to
not-
a man, somebody with a penis.
How would they know?
Okay.
I mean, there's a couple ways that they would
You
know,
can-
but I don't think we need to get into those exactly.
It's,
But
you can
I don't
almost
think that they
always
would
tell.
know.
You can almost always tell. There are very few situations where you actually can't tell.
I don't know if we have the information to.
I trust you. I've dealt with them. I've seen them. I have the information.
So
to
that's
tell.
like your
It's a dead ringer.
experiences,
Yes,
or
I can tell immediately.
Okay, so
I
according
think
to
most
your
people can.
experiences, most of the time you can tell the difference.
Can I get a hand raise? When you see a transgender person, can you tell? Okay.
My eyes burn.
It's pretty much everyone can tell.
But that's that statement
There's a
in
few
itself has an
exceptions.
important flaw, because you wouldn't know the times that you wouldn't be able to tell.
There are a few
Right?
exceptions. There are people who
Right.
are
I mean,
so-called
you wouldn't
passing,
know.
and it's like, okay, if I saw them on the street, I might not be able to tell, but that doesn't change the truth about the matter.
Yeah, but you
right?
wouldn't
Like,
know
if
that you
I-
couldn't tell.
But if I were to know more information, then I would say, that's a man, that's not a woman. And also, we have many instances in nature, like we have the monarch butterfly. There's another butterfly that looks much like it. Birds don't really like the monarch butterfly because it tastes nasty. You also have lots of instances of like poisonous snakes and poisonous bugs. And then you have a butterfly that looks like the monarch butterfly. It doesn't taste nasty, but it appears to be that way to fool the birds. If you saw it, you might think that's a monarch butterfly, but if you make that statement, you are wrong. It's not to say there's something evil about you saying that, you were mistaken, but you are incorrect. So I get what you're saying, but I don't think that really changes anything about.
So to say that the butterfly that isn't a monarch butterfly is a monarch butterfly is incorrect.
Right, you're
Okay.
being fooled by the butterfly.
Because biologically there's a difference between, and that brings me we circle back, right, to the definition of biological male and the definition of biological female is different now, I think, than the definition of male
I mean,
and
if
women.
you're talking strictly about like
A man and a woman.
what these words are actually physically defined as in the dictionary, it hasn't changed. So Oxford still defines a woman as an adult human female, and female as a person that falls into the sexual category capable of bearing children and producing ova.
Is that what it says in the
It's
Oxford
exactly,
Dictionary?
yeah. Do you want me to pull? I can pull it up for you if you want.
I believe you. That's okay.
That's what it says. Yeah.
I also think that when people use words, it's not always exactly what the dictionary says.
But it's.
And I think that
But you were talking about
things
what the
change.
definitions are.
There's what are the words? Denotation and connotation.
Right.
Right,
But I
there's
think,
a-
but
there's a
again, this goes
dictionary
back to the question I
definition and
asked you: is when we look at the majority of people in this country, what do they mean when they use the word? And I think the majority of people probably mean exactly what it says in the dictionary. I think that a lot of people bend to the whims of transgender people and call them women or call them her when they're not hers or they're not women, just so they don't get canceled, because there's a lot of pressure on them, especially in places like this at universities, that cause them to do these things so they don't lose friends, they don't fail their classes for being bigots, they don't get kicked out of school, they don't get reported for being bullied or bullying, being bullies, etc. Right? There's a lot of pressure on them to do these things, but I bet you the majority of them don't actually think that a trans woman is the same as a normal woman, because they're not the same.
Okay, there's a couple things there. The first off, I think that, I mean, I don't know because again, I don't have the like exact information, but I doubt that the Oxford Dictionary is as current as what is colloquial.
They
I bet
update it
words
frequently.
change faster than the
online-
Oxford or the dictionary change. I don't know.
The
Maybe.
online Oxford updates constantly. Like they're
So another
always changing
thing,
it.
what did I have? Another thing that I think, or one of the points now that it becomes more important is that, is it good or bad to acknowledge this sort of transition or change, assuming that the change is existing, right?
I
Oh,
think
I'm
the
sorry.
change is-
So the next one was that
it's artificial.
people that see or colloquially, are we referring to a man or a woman? And again, I think that there's a flaw in the logic that's saying that, well, I can tell when someone is trans. Well, you can't. You can only tell when someone is trans and it's clear because you don't know the times that you don't know, right? If someone is biological
That's
male
fine, but it boils
that
back
is
down to-
female presenting, but it is so
And we go right
good
back to,
of
we-
a transition
we go
that
right
you
back to
can't
Ben's
tell.
argument.
You don't know those times.
Yeah.
Definitionally, you can't know what you
But
don't
it
know.
doesn't matter because our argument isn't that women are people who look like women. Our argument is that women are adult human females. And as Ben said before, there are butterflies that look like monarch butterflies that aren't. And if you mistake that butterfly that isn't a monarch butterfly for a monarch butterfly, you've been fooled and you're incorrectly assessing that this is a monarch butterfly. The assertion that it is one is false.
Okay.
Right? So we could get on an even playing field here, and if you present me a definition of a woman, what you think a woman is, I'm willing to operate off of that definition. But what is it?
Okay, that's what I think is the real crux of this conversation and where this becomes important. If the monarch, you said the monarch butterfly tastes bad. Okay, yeah, and so if a bird makes a mistake and eats that monarch butterfly and it tastes really nasty, there has been a harm to that to that bird because it ate a butterfly that was gross.
Yeah.
I guess. The issue then becomes is this transition in language, is this change in definitions, is it good or bad? And
Oh, yeah,
is
it's
there
definitely
a
harmful in the
harm?
same way.
Is there
Yeah.
a harm to calling someone what they prefer to be called?
Yeah.
And I don't think that there is.
Yeah, there is, and I'll tell you exactly. Actually, this is almost perfectly analogous to the monarch butterfly. If somebody is looking outwardly just like a woman, and I mistake them for a woman, and let's say I decide to go sleep with them, and they pull out a penis, I am going to be mortified. I'm probably going to walk away with post-traumatic stress. It's going to be disgusting, right? I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want that to happen to anybody. So it certainly causes harm there. Furthermore, when you pretend that men are women when they are not, this puts them or gives them the opportunity to be put in women's spaces. I personally have friends who swam on the UPenn. Thank you so much. I personally have friends who swam on the UPenn women's swim team and had to change in a locker room with Leah William Thomas, who had a penis and had previously dated a member of that swim team. You know, like, incredibly uncomfortable for those girls, right? And in women's bathing suits, especially like competitive racing suits, when they're wet, they take a long time to change out of because they're wet and they're like suction cupped to your body. So not only is William Thomas now exposed completely and his male genitalia to these women, they're also exposed to him, this big, brawny, broad-shouldered man who is indistinguishable from a man with long hair. I mean, he doesn't look like a woman. He's got an Adam's apple, a strong jawline, huge, broad shoulders, big biceps. He's a dude.
Okay, there's a couple things that we're hitting there. The first, I think, is that if, in a hypothetical situation, you're a person that is out at the bars and you're trolling, I guess, in the old definition of trolling, in that we're just sort of looking around for someone to bang out, and you're meeting a person and your only goal is sexual gratification, and you run into someone that is a man that you thought was a woman, that's unfortunate for you, but you've put yourself in a sort of weird bind there that I think
No,
ethically,
it's not even just
potentially,
you're
right?
out looking
Where,
for somebody
like,
to sleep with.
ideally, in the ideal world, you're meeting someone who has a personality that you really vibe with and you've made a personal connection to, and now you want to express that physically. is there a rough conversation that has to occur then? Probably.
No, there's
but,
no conversation.
We're
It's
sort of a weird
get out of my
situation that
house.
we've.
There's no conversation about it. So
Because
I'm not
you're
talking, one second.
uncomfortable
One second.
with who that
I'm
person
not
really
fin-
is,
let
or
me-
because
let
you're.
me respond. Let me respond.
I'm trying, but then.
Okay, so let me respond. So I'm not even just talking about you're out just looking for somebody to sleep with. I meet somebody at a bar, maybe I vibe with them, I think they're a woman, I like them, we go on a couple dates, and then eventually it goes to more, right? And then I find out this person is actually a man. Now I'm upset because I've been fooled by this person, right, who I thought was a woman and isn't a woman, and I'm not into penises, right? So now I have a problem.
Sure.
And I'm in a bedroom with a person who's naked and has a penis, right? I don't want to see other men's penises. I don't care who it is. I don't want to see it, right? It's just, I just don't want to see it.
Right, but I think
So I
in
problem
that
with that.
situation, the more important issue there is that person has presented
They've lied.
a lie. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
they've
person
lied.
has
Yeah.
lied to you, and I don't think that if you've made a real intimate mental connection with that person, I don't think the problem the problem is that they have lied about their penis. But I don't think the problem is that they have a penis. The problem is that they have lied, and there is a dishonesty.
Nope. The problem is that they have a penis.
But
It's
that
not
they lied
li-
about it.
Well, that's a problem as well. But the problem for me immediately is this person is a man, and I'm not into men. So goodbye.
Sure,
Like,
yeah.
That's the immediate.
That person
problem
has
there.
lied to you about something that
Right.
is very
Think
vital
about- think
to
about
your
this.
interaction with them. Absolutely.
Think about this. Think about this. What if I had HIV and didn't tell somebody and then went and slept with them?
And they lied about it.
Yeah.
Then that
Well,
problem
no,
is
it's not
that they
even lie. I
lied
just
about
didn't
it.
tell you about it.
Yeah, by omission they have lied about some very important information
Right.
that they
So-
should
so you see,
have
but now this
shared.
person who thinks they're a woman and is presenting as a woman, is convinced by society that they are actually a woman and just the same as women because you want the language to change that includes them in the definition of women. You see the problem?
I see
So they're
that
not
there's
actually lying
clearly an
because the
assumption.
language has changed to include them as women. They're not lying anymore.
When you meet someone that is female presenting, you have the expectation that that person doesn't have a penis.
Yes.
And then if that person should know, if they're attempting to be honest and making an actual connection with you, that they should know that is your expectation because they live in the world and they know how the world
But you want to change
works.
the language to include that person in the definition of the woman. So you wanted me to tell you the problem with including those people in the language. This is the problem because you're
Yes.
saying this person is at fault because they lied and didn't tell me that they're actually a man. But you don't think they're a man. You think they're a woman, and you want them to be included in the definition of a woman, right? So if they've just said, I'm a woman, and they're presenting as a woman, they haven't lied to me. There should be, theoretically, no problem there. But there is because they're not a woman.
They have created an omission
The lie
where they
is the
should have
idea
communicated.
that they are a woman. That's the lie. And that's the lie you want to perpetrate.
They should. Okay, so first off, we do want to identify a harm. I think that is because we want to know what tastes bad in the butterfly
I'm going to guess
analogy.
penis.
I don't know, but there are some people. Anyway, probably not to everybody, but
For me,
again,
that's what tastes bad to me.
we have to. I guess more like a moral taste. Yeah, I don't know.
Back on topic. Back on topic.
Do you want to do a raise of hands again?
Back on topic,
We
back
don't
on
have to do that. Okay. So we're identifying the harm, right? And what is harmful about calling someone what they want to be called?
I just laid it out for you.
I don't
if
think you did.
So if you
I
convince
think that I
them
asked for
that they
harm,
are
and the harm that
same
you
as a
presented
woman-
was a misanalogy. I
Yeah.
think you connected two things that weren't. I think the harm was that they lied by omission,
Go ahead.
or that their presentation was dishonest, or that they didn't share something where there was an expectation that you clearly
Their
understood.
presentation isn't dishonest. The idea that they're a woman is dishonest.
What about the sports thing, though?
The sports thing is harder because there are some very obvious biological differences between someone that is male and someone that is female. And one of those things is athleticism. I mean, it's pretty hard to say that with all the information that we have, right, that a man competing against women isn't unfair. I think absolutely. And I think that identifying the difference between a biological male and the biological female and separating that from the gender conversation is beneficial now because we have some grounds to actually create that distinction where when those two things are muddy, we have less.
Okay, so we've gotten two examples. You think maybe the first one, there's probably not a harm there as long as people are honest. And the second one, there probably is a harm. All right, so, if we are going through
What are the
the
examples?
method that's like, language should be based on something that maximizes utility, for example, which I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think it should be showing truth, right? I don't really see why we should make it to where it maximizes utility. But even then, there are countless other examples, like the second one on there, transgender children. That's a major harm that's happening, and this is a proven harm, and that's why so many countries in Europe are getting rid of this. Even the very socialist party, the very leftist party, the Labour Party in the UK is going back on this because they're realizing how harmful this is for children. If we keep going this direction, I mean, there's countless topics that we could go over. Even if that one topic, like the dating topic, you're like, I don't really see the harm there. There's just so many other topics, and even then, it's like we just want there to be truth. If you want to say you're a woman, like, you can say that all you want. You can say something that's false. We're not going to stop you from saying that. You have freedom of speech. We're just saying we shouldn't accept that as truth, and we don't have to call you a woman. Because, I mean, the fact of the matter is, you might not say this. You seem very reasonable, I think. You might not say this, but a lot of people say, I'm going to get very upset at you, and maybe even there should be repercussions for you if you say I'm not a woman. And that's where our concern comes from. Ultimately, if it was just the case that people, like men dressed in skirts and grew their hair out and it's like, I'm a woman, and just did their own thing, I don't think we'd really be talking about it. The reason we're talking about it is because there are so many implications that come from good catch. Woke liberal catches tent perfectly.
You just saved my life.
Where's the portable charger? Does anybody have?
See, this is why we need to keep you out of women's sports. That reaction time is insane.
Oh no. Okay, so first off, I don't want to say that I'm not ignoring the harm in the dating situation. Right, I do, but I just want to sort of reiterate this, that I do think the harm there is not necessarily the man presenting themselves as a woman. I think the harm is being dishonest with someone that is a potential partner. I think that is a harm.
To be clear, I'm not saying you are. I'm saying
that's
like,
bad.
If what you're saying is true, and like there really probably isn't a harm as long as people are being honest, then there's still lots of other things to consider. Like if I were to completely say you're absolutely right about that, Stephen, then I would say, what about all these other things?
Okay, so the other one is the harms to children, and a few things there. One of the things I think that is more important, or one of the ways that I think this conversation generally plays out, is that the harms that we're talking about are these sort of biological harms that are the potentials of, and I guess feel free to stop me here, the medical implications. Is that what we mean by harms, or are we talking about the mental implications?
Well, both, because I would even oppose social transitioning for children, because I don't think that that's something that's helpful, because over 90% of children who socially transition end up medically transitioning, whether it be while they're minors or when they become adults.
I gotta challenge that.
This is a statistic. I don't have the exact
true.
data. I don't have the
because
exact
I know
data
that the number of children that medically transition is insanely low. It's a very small. It's like less than 1%
or as children
of people that they've transitioned as adults. So
I would imagine most of them probably did.
Were like socially transitioned as children and then they transitioned as adults.
Yeah, I would say most of them.
Okay, yeah,
I don't have the exact source in front of me, but I'm citing a study that usually leftists cite, because they're saying, oh, look how many people end up transitioning and they don't desist.
Okay, I just wanted to preempt that because the number of actual children that have medically transitioned is it's so
many,
small. It's that's fair.
It might not be like millions.
Yeah, there's like 85 children I think that have gotten a surgical procedure, and I think it's like 13,000 that have taken hormone therapy. It's a very, very small number.
So
it's children that are actually taking the medicine. But then the social implication, like the mental issues, right? The mental implicate, and I don't know if we have the data to say that there have been medical implications to those transitions for the children, like the long-term effects. It's sort of like we don't have the numbers because they haven't occurred
It
yet.
doesn't matter how often it does or doesn't happen. We're saying it shouldn't happen at all.
Shouldn't happen at all. Sure, totally fair.
Can I make a few points? Because you said several things. So on the data on transitioning, it's definitely more than 85 who have gotten surgeries. Even the insurance data that we cite, Reuters has articles on this where they talk about the insurance data. That says way more than 85. But the problem with using the insurance data is we still can't determine how many kids are actually transitioning medically, because what if they're using a different type of insurance or they're not using insurance? So most people would say, if they're like assessing all the evidence and being honest about it, they would say, we don't really know how many are transitioning, but even if it is exactly 85 who have surgically transitioned, I would say that's too many.
Okay, so one is too many, right?
Yeah.
Is the position that we're taking. That's fine. I think that whether or not it is 85 or more than 85, I think that the number is small. I think that it's so small that we would call it negligible. And I also would say that if we're talking about specific medical harms, that not
It's
if you
definitely
think one
not
is
negligible,
more
and it doesn't matter even if it is.
Not if
right?
you think one
the
is too
number
many.
of children that are raped is very small, but we would never call it negligible.
than. I don't think I would
matter.
equate those two things. But also,
I'm not equating them.
you are equating them. You
I'm
used
not
it as an
equating
analogy.
them. I'm just comparing two things as an analogy, right? So if something
equates the
bad
same
is
thing.
happening, one second, I'm not equating them, because equating them would be saying that child rape and child transition are the same thing. I'm not saying that. I am analogizing the two. You are saying that because this bad thing rarely happens, it doesn't matter. And if somebody said child rape is bad, but it rarely happens, so it doesn't matter, we wouldn't accept that.
Okay, I'm not saying it doesn't matter. That wasn't my point.
It's negligible.
No, I understand, because I didn't get to finish that and fully flesh that out. The reason I brought up the low numbers is just to decrease the weight of that point. But the real point, I think, is that I don't believe we have the information on the long-term effects of those to say that there have been negative medical implications, because the time frame hasn't occurred yet. Right, so we don't know for sure that there are negative impacts to someone medically transitioning. But the more important issue, I think, is the mental implications, and that is another conversation that I think plays out generally, that when we reject the idea that men can be women and women can be men, and this is where we connect the two things, the mental issues that occur for a young person that has socially transitioned is more likely to come when we reject their emotions and feelings. And so if there's a young person that says, I am a boy assigned, right, I'm male biologically, but I feel like a girl and I want to start dressing and acting like a girl, when there are grown-ups that go to that child and they say, the way that you feel is bad and the way that you feel is wrong and you shouldn't feel that way, I think that is more likely to create mental confusion and problems than if an adult would go to that child and say, the way that you feel is okay, the way that you feel should be accepted, the way that you feel is valid, and you're allowed to feel the way that you do. I think that the mental issues that occur from that are more likely to come from the rejection and the mindset when we say men can't be women.
Okay, so if we're talking about the studies on the medical effects, whether it be hormones, so-called gender-affirming hormones, or puberty blockers, or surgical transitions, there is a lot of research on this. It's probably not enough, but there's been many peer-reviewed studies, and recently you had the CAS review in the UK. The NHS had one of their most important doctors, along with a whole team, review all of the evidence that we had on children transitioning, and they couldn't find any evidence that it benefits them. CAS review, there's been systematic reviews out of the US, the UK, Sweden, Finland, many different countries, and they've consistently found this. All of these systematic reviews. That's why a lot of these countries are rolling back these laws, and they're saying kids can't transition anymore. The UK is doing that. The US has been doing that state by state. Sweden did that. They're closing down these clinics because of malpractice. And recently, Well, it was like 2 years ago. There was a whistleblower at a clinic. I believe it was in Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I read her article, but she was talking about all of these harms that were coming from giving these children these hormones. Like, for example, if you have a young girl who's going through puberty and you're giving her testosterone, it can do things like weaken her vaginal lining. So if she has sexual intercourse, she can actually bleed to death. The penis will break through her vaginal lining and she could bleed to death. And they had an example of one of these girls at this clinic who came in and she almost died. And this can happen to just about anybody if they engage in sexual intercourse while they're on testosterone. So there's many different issues. I mean, puberty blockers, it can affect your bone density. It can affect your brain development. Like, this stuff is it's just not good. And we have the evidence to show it's not good. We have plenty of evidence to show it's not good. Okay, so we have tons of different studies. And also, I mean, you don't necessarily in every case need a study on a particular thing to be able to come to the conclusion that it'll have adverse effects, right? Like, I've seen a couple of papers on like the brain development issue, for example. We don't have studies that are specifically examining the brain development over time, but we have people who are experts on this who say, this is the type of effects that these chemicals would have on brain development, given that we know that they do certain things and they contain certain things and so on and so forth.
Right, but again, a biologically male brain develops differently than a biologically female brain, so just to say that it changes isn't the same as saying that it is harmful or it is bad.
Yeah, I'm arguing that it is harmful stuff. Like, if your bone density is decreasing and you're more likely to have your bones broken and your brain development is slowing down and you're going to mature mentally more slowly, and if you have a higher rate of getting cancer, like, all of those things are definitely bad.
Well, I don't know, but I would gamble that a male bone density is higher than a female bone density, and that is probably a result of testosterone or something that is a male hormone. I mean, and so when a man starts, or when a biological man or biological male starts taking that hormone blocker, and then their bone density develops more similarly now to a female's bone density, that is not bad, it's just different.
What you're saying is true, but you're also completely ignoring and failing to engage with the fact that it increases the likelihood of cancer, it slows down brain development, etc., right? The vaginal lining thing that Ben was talking about, you're just not engaging with those things and you're hyper-focusing on one specific thing.
Okay, again, I'm not sure about the cancer one. What else was it? The brain development.
Again, we have all these systematic
He didn't
reviews.
say that it slows brain development. He said that brain develops differently.
It slows brain development.
And
I don't even know
male
if
and female brains do develop differently.
Bone density is a DNA. It might be a DNA thing, not a hormonal thing, but either way.
Yeah. So the overall point is that we have tons of these systematic reviews that have been done, and the leftists were always saying, oh, they're going to prove that it works, but it never happens. They've consistently said this does not work, it does not help, we do not have the evidence that this helps, and if we don't have the evidence that it helps, and there can only possibly be harms, then we shouldn't do it. We absolutely should not do it, especially when children cannot consent.
Well, in order to create a situation that affirms this, right, to say that it is beneficial, I don't think it is fair to say that this only helps if there are medical benefits, right? So when you say there's no proof that it helps, right?
There's also
so
mental stuff.
What we're saying then is that there's no proof that there is a child that takes hormone replacement therapy and then becomes healthiher, right? I don't think that's the goal. I think the goal is to make a child, feel or
most
more
of the
like
studies,
the way that they feel. And then the mental stuff, again, I think the problem with the mental stuff is the rejection of the person and their personality and their feelings and emotions,
or rejecting
and not
their
necessarily the hormones rejecting their identity. That's the problem. I think that when you reject a child's identity, you're more likely to run into a situation where a child has mental issues.
Most of the studies done are looking at their mental health. So it's looking at depression, it's looking at their self-image and things like that. And these also do not find improvements. And we're rejecting this particular identity because it's false. Identity is a claim about reality, and it's false. To say that they are female is wrong because there's only two gametes, and you can't change to the other gamete. You can't change your body to produce the other gamete. There's only two gametes. You can't transition. It's not a real thing. We're just saying that's false. But even if you were to say, well, what if we go along with this false thing to help them? Well, we don't have the evidence that it does help them. And I've looked into this very extensively. I guarantee you more than everybody right here, maybe everybody within a mile radius. I sat there and I debated this prominent leftist guy who is advocating for this, and so I read all of his sources. I read all the sources going against it. I read stuff from Jesse Singal. He's actually a left-wing journalist who talks about this and agrees with me on this because he actually has looked at the evidence unlike many other people. And Lior Sapir, he's got a PhD. He works for the Manhattan Institute. He's also a bit more left-leaning. He writes a lot about this. Many different people. I actually go out and I read the sources and I see what the evidence shows. And again, we have all these systematic reviews who are saying we don't have the evidence that this helps them mentally, physically, in any way. We don't have the evidence that affirming these false identities helps them. So I just don't think that we should do it.
Not only does it not help them, we actually have evidence to the counter that it worsens their mental states. Like you can look at the Karolinska Institute study, Sweden, 2011. They found that transgender people after sex reassignment had considerably higher risks of mortality, suicidal behavior, and psychiatric morbidity than than people who didn't. TriNet X Multisystems EMR study 2023 found that across 96 healthcare organizations in the United States, adults with recorded gender-affirming surgery. I'm not finished, please. Please stop cutting us off. You've done this a lot, and I'm not doing it anymore. So please stop cutting us off. Okay. They found that adults with recorded gender-affirming surgery had 12 times higher rates of suicide attempts than those who did not. It was 3.47% versus 0.29%. Okay. So I could continue citing you more and more studies. It appears from the studies and research that's been done that suicidal behavior and ideation goes up post-sex reassignment surgery.
Yeah, I believe you that I was just trying to save you some time.
It's okay.
I believe you that those studies exist, and what I'm saying is that I believe that the results of those studies are skewed because of the rhetoric that men can't be women and women can't be
How would that
men.
skew the studies?
So what we'll sort of play it out, right? There's a child that is a biological boy, and I agree with you again what you said earlier. To call someone that is biologically female not biologically female is wrong because again, I think there's a difference between those two things. But let's say that we have a young boy that is biologically male, and then that young boy says, "I feel more like a girl," and we say, "Okay, let's do the thing where we give you hormone replacement therapy and we go through all the medical procedures, and now you're taking these medicine and you're presenting as a girl now, and you're wearing you grew your hair out or whatever it is." And so then that person goes out into the world and runs into people that have this belief: men can't be women and women can't be men, and then they're rejected based on their personality. They're rejected based on their identity, and they're told that their way that they feel is wrong.
Yeah,
and
so
then
I'm
that is how we get the negative depression and the suicidal ideations, right? The person becomes suicidal when they believe that their identity is bad or that their personality is bad.
Yeah, I'm going to say something that's probably going to sound kind of harsh. If you kill yourself because somebody's making observations about reality and stating an objective truth, it's probably natural selection.
Okay.
There's no way, I can't help you. Like, if you are...
Well, you could help them.
You
could help them by
observing
acknowledging their humanity.
No, I acknowledge their humanity. They're obviously a person and they're obviously living, but they're also obviously not a woman, right? And I'm not going to pretend they are. I'm not going to change reality or lie to them and lie to the rest of the world for their benefit. It hurts everybody else, but it helps them. No, I'm not going to do that.
How does it hurt everyone else?
And we've been explaining it for over
like the sports
I must
thing
miss
like
that part.
And what I haven't even brought up is the reverse of what you're talking about, where children who otherwise would not have gone on to be transgender are doing it because of this ideology, right? So we see that there's a very high desistance rate for children who start saying that they're the other gender or the other sex. Desistance is different from detransitioning. A lot of people conflate the two. Detransitioning is when you've transitioned socially or medically and then you go back. Desistance is they're just expressing this. Maybe they're expressing that they might have gender dysphoria, maybe it's something close to that, and we see very high desistance rates. The DSM-5 talks about this, and it's about like 60 to 80% desistance. There was recently a study out of Germany. It found something very similar. There was another study out of the UK. So we're consistently replicating this data where we see this very high desistance rate. Now, if you look at
What is desistance?
Desistance.
What is that?
Desistance is when you are identifying as the opposite sex, and then you stop, right? So like, let's say a 12-year-old boy says, I'm a girl, and they keep saying, I'm a girl, and they take them to a psychologist, say, hey, what's going on? Oh, maybe they have gender dysphoria, and then 6 months go by this time they're saying, I'm a boy, I don't believe I'm a girl, right? With maybe very little pushback, maybe they were reasoned with, something like that, and they never express this again. That's what desistance is. So it's basically like it was a little fad that they have.
And is that different from detransitioning?
Yes.
Because there's an element of like regret?
No, detransitioning is when you've actually transitioned. So desistance is when they haven't actually transitioned. So detransitioning is you socially transition, culturally transition, medically transition, whatever. You've gotten surgery, so on and so forth. That's what detransitioning means. And a lot of people, they get this stuff confused because they don't understand the difference between the two. And that's okay, If you're not reading all these academic papers, you probably won't. But so we see these very high desistance rates. But if these children socially transition, even just socially transition, like I said, over 90% of them go on to get surgeries and things like that, and maybe live almost their whole lives as transgender. So that's just such a dramatic difference, almost a 180. And then, of course, now they're experiencing things like mental health issues, depression. Maybe they're experiencing the issue where people aren't affirming their identity, and maybe they'll kill themselves. Well, they didn't even have to be in that position to begin with. A majority of them, based on the statistics we have, they didn't even have to be in that position to begin with. They would have gone on to live normal lives. This happens with gay people a lot, right? You have a gay boy who's interested in girly things, like, oh, you're a girl, and they end up transitioning. They go through all these surgeries. Maybe it's even after they're a minor, right? Maybe it's when they're 18. They're just socially transitioned as a minor. They go on to get all these surgeries, and it's very hard to detransition at that point because typically they're going to make a lot of friends who are also transgender, and detransitioning is extremely taboo. There are so many stories, like Jesse Singal, the journalist, the left-wing journalist I mentioned. He's covered stories like this and has spoken to many people. It's so hard to detransition because you get so much pushback. They're saying, oh, you're going to give the conservatives ammo if you detransition. It's a very tough thing. And, we don't even have accurate data on detransitioning because oftentimes people do it because they're not being taken care of at the gender clinics. So these studies that say, oh, only 1% of people detransition, they're not looking at the thousands of other people who were going to the clinic and stopped because they were suffering and they wouldn't go there anymore. So they didn't tell the clinic that they were detransitioning. So like detransitioners are very, very hurt people, and we don't even know how many of them there are because it's so taboo to detransition, like probably even more taboo than transitioning.
So there's the first big issue with, I think, what you just said, where 90% of, I think, what you said is solid. I think that it is good information. I think one of the bigger problems with one of the ways that I would challenge what you said more than anything else is the idea that people that have never, to say that if they had never transitioned in the first place, that they would go on to live normal lives. I think that can't be true. I think that someone that is living in a body that they don't feel connected to, or someone that is biologically male but wants to be female presenting and never expresses that, is not a person that will go on to live a normal life. I think that person is much more likely to have feelings of depression and anxiety where they don't feel like they're able to present themselves. We saw that with gay people before gay became more into the norm, where they were forced into the closet, and then that's where we got our suicide rates because they were unable to express how they felt and who they were as people.
Well, I
Just trying
should
to play
say being
footsie with
gay
me
is
under the
completely
table.
different because being gay has a basis in reality, right? If I'm a guy and I'm gay, which I'm not, by the way, if I'm a guy and I'm gay,
Ladies.
it's because I like men, you know? It's because I enjoy men, you know, maybe sexually, physically, whatever, right? That has a basis in reality, and we can tie that identity to something in reality.
Yeah,
Gay
but
men
men
who are
dressing
being
as
like,
women, that happens in reality too.
if a gay man is being told, oh, you can't express your gayness, he's being told that he can't outwardly show that he does, in fact, have a sexual attraction to men, right? But he still has that. He'll always have that. You can't, I mean, maybe it'll go away. It's possible. But he still has that. He doesn't magically not have it because people say so. When it comes to children being transgender, there is no basis in reality, right? They're just feeling a certain way. We don't even know what they're feeling. I mean, are they feeling like they're a woman? How do they know what a woman feels like? They don't even know that, right? It's completely different.
Do any of us? What does
I
being a
imagine
man
women do.
feel like?
Do you women know what it feels like to be a woman?
What does being a man feel like?
Well, I mean, I know, like,
I guess I just feel like me. I don't know that I'd say that being a man. Well, maybe it's because I'm not a woman, so I don't have anything to compare it to.
Gym and football.
The point of the matter is, the point is,
It feels
right,
like privilege mostly is how it feels.
the point is that gay people are actually gay, right? They're actually attracted to men. Men who think they're women are not actually women.
So you're saying it is a truth and a reality because there is an
Yes.
outward expression?
No, I'm saying that men cannot be women. That is an objective fact. Gay people are gay because they're attracted to women, which is possible, or because they're attracted to men, which is possible. It is possible to be attracted to men as a man.
And
is
it's not possible
for a
to
man
feel
to
like
be
a
a woman.
woman.
No, it's possible to feel like a woman. It's not possible to be a woman. Let me ask you something. We're going back to it. I'm going to show you something real quick.
But how is a man
No,
who
one second,
feels like
one
a
second,
man
one second.
different than
One
a
second.
woman, a man
Yeah,
that feels like a
I'm
woman?
going to explain it perfectly, and I hope it clicks in your brain in just a second. Is this a dog?
I was trying to see this earlier.
Is that a dog?
That doesn't look like a dog.
Are you sure it looks like a dog? I think it looks like a dog.
We need to talk to
And
you about what you think the dog
I
is.
think that most men who think they're women don't look like women. But do you think that's a dog?
Again, you wouldn't know if they did.
He feels like a dog.
Does he?
It appears
Did you
so.
ask him?
He's begging for treats, wearing a dog mask, rolling over.
Okay, so this
It seems
takes us
he feels
to
like a dog. Is he a dog?
This does take us to another, I think, probably the most important aspect of this. Is there a
No,
harm?
I want you to answer that question.
to you?
Is this a dog?
I don't think so.
Okay, great.
That doesn't look like a dog
Great,
to
but
me.
he feels like a dog, and you said that if a man feels like a woman, he is a woman. So,
So this is I think that's the important
what's the
point.
difference
In
why a man who feels like a woman is a woman, but a man who feels like a dog is not a dog?
okay, let's take your sort of wild
No,
connection
I
here
want
sort
an
of separately.
answer. I just want an answer.
What was the question?
The answer is, why is it that a man who feels like a woman is a woman, but a man who feels like a dog is not a dog?
Because a dog is a biological definition, and a woman, like I
Right,
said,
here we
is
go.
a gender definition that has changed.
The definition of a woman is an adult human female. The definition of a female is a person who falls in the sexual category capable of bearing children and producing ova. A man cannot be a woman, just like a man cannot be a dog. And if you want to say that we've changed the definition of woman to include men, I would say, why can't we change the definition of dog to include men?
I would say that language is fluid, and we absolutely could.
Okay, so this guy
in
can be a
some
dog.
world change the definition of a dog.
I'm going to hold you to this.
to
I
be a
want an
dog.
answer. Can that guy be a dog?
A biological dog, or
Can
have
he-
we
no, I'm
changed the
asking you, can he
definition
be
of
a
dog
I'm just asking you, can he be a dog?
in the way that the
it
definition
possible?
stands now?
Is it possible?
in the future?
Is it possible?
Now or in the future?
Is it possible at all?
Yes.
It's possible for a man to be a dog.
If the definition of dog changes.
Okay. And here we go to absurdity. And do you see, I want everyone to notice something. You are very willing to change the definition of a woman to include men, but you are very averse to the idea of changing the definition of a dog to include a man. Why is that?
So again, because there's a biological difference.
There's a
between
biological
male
difference
and a
between men and
female.
women.
That's what we just said the same thing. There's
Right.
a biological difference to a male and a female and the definitions of gender have changed.
They haven't
where man
changed.
and woman is now separate from male and female.
The definitions physically have not changed. The definitions are the same as
well,
they've always been.
definitions aren't physical. They're not. They're
Where
words.
do you find
words
definitions?
are just these sounds
No.
that we make. I mean, they
Where-
are physical in sound waves, I guess, but they're really just sounds that we make.
Where do you
And
find a
words
definition?
can mean whatever
You're
they
going.
want
You're
them to
going.
mean
You're doing a lot of mental gymnastics right now. Where do you find definitions?
in the world.
In the dictionary, and the definitions have not changed.
I would say you can find definitions in dictionaries, but you can also find definitions in meanings. Well, let me ask you this. Where did those definitions that are in the dictionary come from?
What people wrote them.
Yeah, why? Why did they write those
Reflect
words instead of
reality.
other words?
To reflect what people mean when they say them.
Exactly.
Yes.
To reflect
and
what
we've
people
already
mean
been here. We were
when
here
say them.
probably exactly 1 hour ago. We were here. Raise your hand if you think when you say the word woman, men are included. Well, not a single person raised their hand, right? So if we just quickly poll the people, what do we think this is? Like 40 people, maybe 30? I don't know. If we just quickly poll the people that are standing right here, not a single one of them, 100 out of 100, or 100% of them believe that a man can't be a woman, right? So it doesn't seem that the word, what you're trying to say is reflective, right? If you're trying to say that the majority of people, that when they say woman, men are included, it doesn't seem to match reality. If you polled the entire world, I guarantee you would have a result that men are not included.
Because men and women are different.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly, and men cannot be women.
But male and man are not the same thing either.
They are.
So, and as far as on a national level, it's usually about 66 to 70% who say there are two genders and kind of reject this. And that's from Pew Research, NBC, Gallup, PRRI. It's usually around the 66 to 70%.
And I do believe that is a leftover, a hangover from the antiquated definition of gender, which was at one point intrinsically linked to biological
Yeah, it
sex,
doesn't matter
but
because you're
has
making the
changed.
argument that it has changed, but it is still the case that the majority of people think it hasn't changed. So if our language is reflective of what we mean when we say things, it is still the case that when the majority of people say the word woman, men are not included, right? So it hasn't changed. Colloquially, the majority of people still mean a woman like that one right there when they say woman. They don't mean him. They don't mean you. They don't mean me. And they don't mean Ben. They mean her.
They're talking
Right.
about the thing that they're looking at.
They're talking about
So
women.
something that
Adult
looks
human
like a
females
woman is a woman.
No, adult human females. People who fall into the
But a-
sexual
but a
category capable
person-
of producing ova. We got.
But what
we
you're
got some
saying
people
is that
waiting.
when we look at something and call it a woman, then it is a woman.
No, that's what you're saying.
But how would you? But that's what we're saying. That's what we're saying.
No, that's what you're saying. You're saying if it looks like a woman, it is a woman. I'm rejecting that notion. I am saying that a woman is an adult human female, and a female is a person who falls into the sexual category capable of producing ova. That also happens to be what the majority of people think. So the definition has not changed.
Okay.
But we have some people waiting, so I'll give you one last statement, and then we'll rotate in some new people.
Oh boy, I have to prepare a closing statement. I didn't.
You don't. You don't have to. I just wanted to give you a chance to say whatever's on your chest.
I think that we have arrived at a fundamental difference in belief structures, and I think that we can agree to disagree that the definition of biological assignment at birth and gender, it seems like your belief of that is that they are the same thing, and that my belief of that is that gender is different now, and that man and women should be gender is gender where male and female is biological sex. I think that is the difference that we have arrived.
I agree.
And I don't think we're going to get past that, and that's totally okay.
Okay.
I also think that another difference that I don't think much, actually, that it's as much of a difference that we have. I think that the big problem in not acknowledging, and the big problem with the rhetoric that men can't be women, is that when you have that rhetoric, you're rejecting the way that people feel.
Yes.
And that is inherently bad.
I reject people
And
the
I
way people
think-
feel all the time. If you feel like you want to kill people, I reject that. If you feel like you want to cheat on your spouse, I reject that. If you feel like you want to
Thought this
punch
was my
Lance in the
closing
face,
statement.
I might not necessarily reject that. Just kidding. It's a joke for Lance. But you get what I'm saying? You can reject how
Yes.
people feel, and that's perfectly fine.
I think that when there are legitimate harms, like killing people and punching people, that we should reject. But I don't think that there is, either because there isn't enough evidence or that because the evidence is skewed, I don't think there is enough evidence to say that not calling someone or respecting the way that they feel is harmful when it is this topic specifically. And I think that's what we got.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you very
Just
much.
slide that mic back in the holder. Thank you. It's all right, yeah.
Hi, my name is Jack. Nice to meet
How's
you.
it going? Cam,
So, what I want to talk to you about today is.
if you want to hold the mic, you can. You just have to hold it kind of close to your face.
this better?
It's sensitive. Yeah. So you'll want to just talk into the top of it so the speaker picks it up. You'll be able to hear when your voice is coming through it and when it's not.
Okay, great. Yeah, what I want to talk to you today is.
You can pick it right out of there and hold it if you want. Yeah. Just hold it real close to your face like this, like how I'm doing it.
Yeah, I'm assuming that you're Trump supporters, right?
You got to hold it closer.
Like this?
Like up.
Like this?
Can I see that?
Yeah.
I think you might have turned it off actually. Test. There you go. Yeah, I think it's
Hello?
off. Do again.
Hello?
Yep, you're good. Okay.
Okay, great. I'm assuming that you're Trump supporters, right?
Yep.
So
I am.
Trump's slogan, "Make America Great Again."
Yeah.
We're on the same page there. I was born in America. It's my home. I love this country more than anything else in the world. But I'm looking at this sign. Men can't be women, kids can't be trans, and deport all illegals.
Yep.
I think that we're really on the same page about what we want for this country. We want a good economy. We want a strong society. We want tight community bounds and strongly set roles as Americans. We want to participate in the American dream. I don't know that this sign is a discussion that we need to be having right now, though. I mean, when we talk about making America great, we have deport all illegals. Should that really be one of our fundamental values?
Yes.
Why is that? Why do you think so?
You need borders. Every country in the world has borders, and every country in the world that's not a failed state enforces their borders. It's important that you do this. The government's core, reason it exists is to protect the people inside of the country and to create and produce the best outcomes for those people. If you fail to enforce border laws, you fail to protect your people. When I go to bed at night, I shut my door, I lock it, and I put a loaded gun on my nightstand. Okay, if somebody comes into my house without my permission, I'm going to do one of two things. I'm going to try to remove them, and if I can't, I'm going to blow a 5-inch hole in their chest.
Sure.
Okay? I think my country should do the same thing. If unwanted visitors come into this country without permission of my government, of my country, without the consent of my country, those people should be removed. Right? And if they refuse to be removed, force should be used to remove them. Okay, those people can be dangerous. They can be bringing things here we don't want here. They're a net fiscal drain on the U.S. economy, according to the House Committee on Budget in their study in conjunction with the Center for Immigration Studies. They are a net fiscal drain of $68,000 per person. The equation is just simply taxes paid minus social welfare used. They are a burden on this economy. Furthermore, if you don't enforce border laws, you risk that countries will send sleeper cells here, which is a risk we can't bear to incur. Okay, there are a lot of people who don't like America in the world, and we can't allow those people to have an advantage against us. So if you have those laws, if you have these border laws that are meant to protect the people in this country, you have to enforce them, because your laws are only as valid as their enforcement mechanism. If you don't enforce the law, they don't exist. And so you have to enforce it evenly. If you say, oh, well, this person's probably fine. Oh, well, that person's really probably fine. You're not actually enforcing the laws, and people will think they can just do it anyway. And the more they continue to do it, the more the law seems to not be important, and the more people will exploit it. So the law has to be enforced, and it just so happens that the enforcement mechanism for violation of 8 U.S. Code 1325 improper entry by alien is deportation.
Yeah, see, I hear you and I understand. From my perspective, where I'm coming from, are you a Christian? Can I ask that?
I'm a new Christian, yeah. So I'm not a theologian. I'm not going to be able to answer probably any religious questions you have.
That's perfectly fair. But what I think of is Jesus' statement: treat the foreigner in your country like a citizen. I think it would be bad to deport a citizen.
That's not a statement. to clarify, I am a lifelong Christian. That's not actually a statement. Like, treat the foreigner as a citizen. The word used in the verse you're referencing is in reference to, the word in Hebrew, which I've checked this myself. I've looked at Hebrew dictionaries. It specifically means somebody who was invited. And also, I mean, it certainly is the case that we should treat illegal immigrants with dignity, right? We don't think you should hunt them down, treat them like animals or anything like that. They still do have human rights. They just don't have American rights. You know, the rights exclusive to Americans in the same way that any immigrant can't vote or whatever. So I'm like half and half kind of on the same. I kind of get what you're saying. I agree with it to an extent. But also, like, it's definitely not saying that you just let illegal immigrants roam free and you have an open border.
Sorry, the wind is making my eyes water. But really, what I'm driving at here is just, I think that it's kind of important for us to get our priorities straight, right? And when we look at what our priorities are, what they should be, what does it really mean to make a place great? What the sign is talking about is 1% of the population who describes themselves as trans. And we've got a few possibilities here.
This is just one thing we're talking about today. We're talking about lots of things.
But just, you know, to cover the basis of the sign, let's take a look at like what the options are of what it means to be trans. Either a man can become a woman and a woman can become a man, right? That's what you're arguing against. Or they can't. And what it means for a person to get top surgery, bottom surgery, whatever, is they make an aesthetic change in their bodies. Or they can't, and there's some sort of new age religion or cult or something which is converting children into this ideology of gender altering whatever. But whatever of those three options it is, we have all kinds of religions all over the place. And I'm not saying that this is a religion, but what I am saying is we've got serious problems going on in the United States that demand practical action, I think. Like right now, the government shut down, our service members aren't getting paid. I think
because Democrats refused to vote on the budget bill that was almost identical to the previous year.
Sure,
they did vote
maybe
to
not.
approve, so.
There are all kinds of reasons that could be the truth. But I still think that there are more pressing concerns right now than the 1% of the population who's doing something we disagree with and the people who don't belong in America, the people who don't deserve to be here.
Okay, so do you want to debate the topic, or do you want to debate that the topic doesn't matter? I don't care how much you say the topic doesn't matter. It matters to me. So there's nothing to argue there.
Okay, so I think you're kind of misinterpreting the point. The point isn't to come out here and just change people's mind on like gender. The point is the reason Fearless Tour started, which, you know, I wasn't here at the beginning. He was, but I think he would agree with this. The reason it started is because Charlie Kirk was assassinated speaking on campus, and a lot of people were celebrating it, and also a lot of people were scared. The day after, on September 11th, last month, I went to UT Austin, and I went with some friends. We held signs up supporting Charlie, supporting free speech, saying free speech should not incite violence, or you shouldn't use violence against people using free speech, I should say. And we were supporting Charlie Kirk, we were supporting free speech. People came up to us, they said nasty stuff, but also people came up to us crying and saying, I'm a conservative on campus, now I'm scared to do anything. Right? This is very consistent. We were talking to people yesterday at UNT. They're saying we're scared to express our political beliefs. This isn't just to come out here and talk about gender. Like, that's just a topic. We sit here and we're like, all right, what would be the best topic to cover, where we would actually find people who disagree with us. The thing is, we're having a nice conversation. We had a great conversation with Steven just now. I'm sure Steven disagrees with us a lot. He was very, very nice. I thought he was fairly reasonable. We talked to some other people, super nice, a guy named Adam, several other people. They're very nice people, and we're just showing people we should be able to talk to each other about this. And free speech is important. We should be able to come out here and set up our table, talk to you guys. Leftists should be able to do the same. That's really the point here. I get what you're saying. There are more important issues than what's on there. I agree with you. But like, we don't always have to be talking about these issues. And I would say the number one most important issue right now is freedom of speech. And kind of tied into that is being against political violence, like us being able to peacefully talk to each other and not resorting to violence, not resorting to nastiness, because we cannot have a civil society and we can't even discuss these issues if we don't have that.
Yeah, and I think that's a really big part of the point that I had in coming up here, is to say, yeah, I did come up to talk about the priorities of what's being discussed, and so I'll leave it here. But yeah, I agree. Freedom of speech is super important. The University of Tulsa had the Freedom of Speech Week a couple weeks ago. I went to a keynote seminar on speech as a middle ground. That was great. And that's all I want to say is, yeah, I get what you're here for. I get what you're trying to do. I think that I disagree about what exactly it means for us to pursue greatness, but I put that out there, and that's it. That's all I have to say.
All right. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Oh. Thanks for coming out.
Hi, how's it going? You can, Cam, nice to meet you. You can stand, just stand kind of right here. You can actually pick that mic out of the holder, just kind of stay in the middle, and hold it real close to your mouth so it can pick you up.
So I'm more like right leaning, but
I want to hold it like a little closer.
Just like right here.
Yeah.
My question was like, what's y'all's opinion on mental health?
On what?
Mental health.
What do you mean? What's the opinion on mental health?
Kind of just broad. Like, do y'all think more so that we should like be getting out there and like really trying to make ourselves like better in the head? I guess.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's like I think it's one of our biggest like things that's become less talked. Like it's becoming more talked about, but it's not very publicly talked about. So I think it's a big worry for me is I have like friends that are just like not getting out there and like not talking about like the shit they're going through. It's like they need to talk about this, and it just needs to be more publicized.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
Yeah.
And it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
What's up?
What's up, man?
Cam, nice to meet you.
Ben.
Jacob.
If you want to just grab the mic out and you can just kind of,
Yes, sir.
yeah, just kind of stay in the middle, like in the middle of the table here, and just hold it close to your mouth.
So, I was listening to your guys' conversation with Stephen Haber. I had a few questions about your guys' views on trans people and what roles that they like have in society. My first question would be, do you guys believe that trans people have been around and will continue to be around?
I don't concede that people can be transgender in the first place, but people who think they're trans, yeah, they exist. And they've been around, yeah, sure. I'm fine with conceding
So I
that.
guess my next question, I got most of my questions answered through the conversation with Stephen, is what are you guys doing to support trans people?
Nothing.
Nothing at all?
Me personally, I'm doing
You
nothing.
have no support for the trans community that's like suffering like pretty heavily, like scrutiny from the Republican Party or the mental health they have. You show no support for the trans
I
party?
think that what should be done to help them is it should be made medical malpractice to cut their balls off.
Okay.
First of all, we don't affirm any other mental illness. We don't affirm schizophrenia by telling people that the voices in their head are true. We don't give people who are anorexic or bulimic dietary plans and tell them they are fat and they should lose weight. Nor should we do that for transgender people. And the studies repeatedly show that the suicide rates in transgender people are higher after their gender is affirmed and after they receive surgeries than it is prior. I don't think it helps them. But what am I personally doing to help them? Nothing. Other than advocating for what's best for them.
I mean, I'll always treat people with kindness. I have some, like maybe 2 friends who are transgender, but they're also people who are like Christian and right wing. So they're not like engulfed in the leftist culture and ideology. They just have gender dysphoria, and they're like, I feel like I need to wear a dress. But they wouldn't even claim per se like I am a woman, is just dressed like a woman. But also I did extensive research into like the transitioning children thing because I wanted to know how can we actually help children, and I was looking into how psychotherapy is probably the best option for them as opposed to social transitioning or medically transitioning. And then I tried to tell people about it. I went on big leftist platforms. I'm like, hey, let's debate about this, let's have dialogue about this so I can show your audience that they're probably wrong and we can actually help people. Because if we can say we're not like actively going around raising money and doing all this stuff, but like I think we should always treat them with kindness. If a transgender person came up right now and they're like, hey, I'm kind of concerned with the stuff you're saying, I would have a very reasonable and respectful conversation with them just as anybody else.
I think we have fundamentally different views on what helping trans people actually looks like. And that was kind of reiterated through, I guess, this conversation with Stephen, where I believe that coming out here and perpetuating that men can't be women or kids can't be trans is not showing support. It's like almost perpetuating hate.
We're not trying to show support. We don't support their ideology, right? I mean, we can support the people. Like if a transgender person came to me and needed help, if I saw, wow, the woke wind.
It's taking us out, man.
Like if I saw a transgender person being attacked in the street, I would protect them just as I would anybody else, right? Like I would protect them as a person. I support their human dignity in every circumstance. I think that they should get real health care if they need it. real mental care if they need it, psychological help if they need it, so on and so forth. Like, but am I going to affirm their identity that I think is false? No. And what I would wonder is, if I have that position that this is something that is false, and I also have the position, which maybe I'm wrong about that, but I also have the position that it doesn't help medically, and again, maybe I'm wrong about that, but if I have these positions, I mean, what do you expect me to do other than support their dignity as humans?
I guess the support that I would expect to be shown, like that I feel is not coming from the Republican Party, would be accepting that trans people will be here and will continue to show themselves, which both of you guys said you agree with. There will be trans people here. I think the fundamental difference in helping them would be showing support, being supportive, when they're already facing so many struggles like the mental health crisis or the struggle with suicide. I believe that pushing almost like, not saying that this is hateful rhetoric, but saying that men can't be women or saying what they're doing is completely wrong is not helping them in any aspect of the harms that you guys are worried about.
I mean, if I'm correct about the data on the mental health and whatnot, then it would be helping them, because like I might be able to convince them to not go through with it, or somebody to not go through with it with their kids in the future. So I mean, you might believe I'm wrong about that stuff, but I can tell you, I'm definitely genuine. Like, I'm not here. I would never want to hurt a person because they're transgender at all, mentally or anything. I don't go around posting the fucking like hanging yourself memes all over Twitter, like, haha, got you. Like, no, I'm not that type of person. I don't think we should be doing that. That's very much not productive. I think any sort of genuine hatred towards somebody because of their identity or because of their race or gender, anything of the sort, is categorically evil. It's completely unchristian for me to do that. It's evil. Anybody who does that, they're engaging in something evil, and we should support their dignity.
Of course. I feel like we're going to hit a little bit of like another circle, like with the Stephen conversation, so I'm going to move on to the third point of deport all illegals. And I would like to hear.
I don't even debate that. All right, let's
Okay.
hear what you got. It's okay. I'll try
Okay.
my best.
Well, I would like to hear your position first, if that's okay.
So I would say I'm much more libertarian than everybody else on the tour. But I definitely do think that we should have borders, as long as we have a state. We should have borders, because if you don't have borders, you don't have a country. You know, if there's no such thing as being an American, then you don't have a country. You have to have a difference between an American and a non-American. I still think that you should have the universal rights, like the right to life. You don't say illegal immigrants don't have the right to life. They do have the right to life. You can't go around killing them. That's ridiculous. You can't go around enslaving them, so on and so forth. But yeah, I mean, if you're coming into the country illegally and you have this situation where we basically don't have a border, like, that's a big problem for national security, for the American workers. It's also a problem for many of the foreign countries, because they experience things like brain drain, where people who are very intelligent or high skilled leave their countries to have a better life in America, and now there's nobody left to improve their home country.
I guess we have very similar views, but I would like to hear your views on the deportations happening right now and how we're addressing the deport all illegal statement, like in the status quo.
Yeah, I don't see any reason for me personally to object to deportations. I mean, I do think we have to maintain rule of law. I do think, you know, innocent until proven guilty, of course. I don't think we should just be deporting people because we feel like it, obviously. I do think that if somebody's here on a visa and they do something like support a terrorist group or call for the overthrow of America, maybe we should revoke their visa.